All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 1:18 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 3rd of May 2025. How are you doing this beautiful afternoon? How are you doing? We are back with another episode. You know what time it is. All right, with that being said, Trump, this guy, has become the Pope, AI Pope. Okay, it's like, Lord, what are you doing, President Pope Trump? Like, what are you doing? But he posted a picture of himself as the Pope. Of course, it is AI, and everybody's talking. Everybody has been talking. Is he mocking the Pope? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? Nobody knows. Trump is so unorthodox that you could never know what he's thinking or what he wants to do next. But here is a picture of Donald J. Trump as the Pope right here. A little controversial. Actually, not a little controversial. Very controversial. But this is the types of, I would say, thing and attention that Trump gets and commands. His humor is out of this world. This is definitely just to troll everybody. But of course, Rome, they're definitely not going to take this lightly, especially Catholics or, you know, hardcore Christians. This is definitely going to be a no for them. But overall, this man just knows how to catch crews. He knows how to catch some crews, ladies and gentlemen. This is way too funny. Like, this is too funny, man. Welcome to the live show one more time. What do you think about this AI picture of Donald J. Trump as the Pope? What do you guys think of this picture right here of Donald J. Trump as the Pope? He posted this yesterday on his Truth Social, and it's been going viral. All right. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Let me open it up. Let me open it up. Let me open it up. A lot of people are talking already. They're talking already about this picture. But with that being said, I think he's just trying to troll everybody. But like I said earlier, Catholics or hardcore Christians are definitely not going to take, they're definitely not going to take this likely. Okay. They already don't like him. Okay. Now, him posting this is like, whoa, 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 sir, sir. Okay, shout out to J. William Watson. He says, I am Catholic and I approve of this message. Yo, Jay. Yo, Jay. Jay says, I am Catholic and I approve of this message. That's just wild. Shout out to Jay. Who else is Catholic and agrees or approves this message? Who else is Catholic and approves this message? Let me know. All right, here we go.
Now, this morning, another round of tariffs are in effect, this one on imported auto parts, and it could play a significant factor in the auto industry. Previous auto tariffs left U.S.-made cars mostly untouched. But with this new tariff in place, there's not a single U.S. car manufacturer that will get a pass. The CEO of General Motors told CNN the tariffs would cost the company between $4 billion and $5 billion this year. So what does this mean for car buyers? We may not see any price hikes in the short term. Experts estimate, though, the added cost of the tariffs eventually could average to about $4,000 per vehicle. But Trump doesn't seem worried about how these tariffs will affect the economy. He actually said it's okay if the country takes an economic downturn in the short term. CNN's Jeff Zeleny has more from the White House.
Omar, as President Trump spends a working weekend at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, the economy remains front and center on the minds of the challenges of this White House, of this administration, even as the White House is releasing its budget blueprint, if you will, to slash spending across the government. The president was asked about the question of a recession by NBC's Kristen Welker.
And that's my question,
Remember
the
this.
long term.
Yeah.
Is it okay in the short term to have a
Remember
recession?
this. Look, everything's okay. What we are, I said, this is a transition period. I think we're going to do fantastically.
The president talking about a transition period, that is something he certainly did not talk about when he was running for office, when he promised to lower prices on day one. But there is no doubt about it. The president is simply trying to buy more time for the economy to get back up to speed, even as the administration tries to ink some type of a trade deal that so far has been elusive. Jeff Zeleny, CNN, the White House.
All right, Jeff, thank you. Joining me now is Republican strategist Brian Robinson and Democratic strategist Theron Johnson. Thank you both for being here. Brian, I'll start with you. Let's just pick up where Jeff left off there on the economy, because yesterday's jobs report was stronger than expected. Stock market has rallied, but consumer sentiment very low. Lowest level since May 2020. And then Trump tells NBC he would be okay if the economy slipped into a recession in the short term. I wonder what you make of the economic picture right now, and do you worry about it for Republicans?
Well, there's still a lot of really good economic news. The headline on the top of the Wall Street Journal right now is economy remarkably resilient despite all these headwinds when it comes to tariffs and the uncertainty and instability that conversation is bringing. What Trump said about this may induce a short-term recession reminds us, Omar, that this guy plays by a different set of rules than almost any other elected official. And that authenticity is played to his benefit to a large degree. No one else would ever say, yeah, my policy may create a recession. But the strong, unwavering support of his base allows him to kind of go out on a limb like that. This is something he truly believes in. And when it comes to these tariffs, he believes that the issue isn't so much that Americans are going to pay more for cars, it's that Europeans and Chinese people and Japanese folks need to buy more American cars. We buy theirs, they should buy ours. It should be fair. And if that's where we can get to eventually, I think that's a huge win. I'm probably a dwindling member of the Free Trade Republican Party. You know, there's not many of us left, I understand. But if we can use this to get fair tariffs for our products, it's a win. I don't want to see long-term tariffs that will hurt American innovation and ingenuity. It'll make us less competitive.
And Theron, I want to pick up on that because, you know, for even some of the good economic indicators, there are a lot of economic headwinds, uncertainty around the tariffs, essentially ammo that one would think Democrats would have to sort of capitalize on. And I wonder, just from your perspective, what do you believe Democrats have the strongest case on against the Trump administration right now and the lead up to potentially the midterms?
Well, we got to tell the truth about this economy, and let's start with the tariffs. No matter how you try to spin it, these are inflationary tariffs. Every study, every economist that we talk to, and history has shown us in this country that you add on to inflation when you create tariffs. Donald Trump promised us that on day one or the first week, or at least in his first 100 days, he was going to tackle immigration and he was going to lower inflation. He's failed to do that. If you really look at this report also, Omar, it talks about
How has he failed to lower illegal immigration? That's definitely not true.
how job gains are really, really down. Layoffs are up. Small businesses, and particularly big businesses, should be very afraid because they've essentially been paralyzed. They can't make any bold predictions about how they're going to run their companies because you have a president who is telling us, hey, just wait and see, trust in me for 2 years. I think the working class American, hardworking families in this country are worried. A lot of them are worried about their small businesses, many of whom have become entrepreneurs. But big businesses right now are having to answer to their shareholders. And while the stock market did rally, we are seeing record low stock market activity. So those of us in this country right now, almost 70% put our money in 401ks, we put our money in the stock market. And so now with that not being where it needs to be, I think that we as Democrats have got to tell the truth. And more importantly, go back to strengthening the middle class and working class families.
And Brian, you know, one of the things here that we also saw is the Trump administration put out their blueprint, their budget blueprint for their priorities here. And some of the priorities, just top lines, there's boosting defense spending, including boosted spending at the border, cutting programs, though, for education, foreign aid, health, and the environment. At least from someone like Senator Susan Collins, who's on the Senate Appropriations Committee, it does seem like there's not 100% of Republicans are fully on board. And I wonder for you, when you hear some of those priorities, are those priorities that concern you, excite you? Where do you feel? Where do you stand here?
Well, you're looking at hundreds or thousands of items. So everybody's going to find something in there they don't want to see cut. Everybody's going to have something they hope to see further investment in. And we did get the word from Republicans on Capitol Hill immediately that the budget from the president, just like it is with every president, not just Donald Trump, is a suggestion that isn't taken too seriously by members of Congress. So that's very normal. But what I do appreciate as a Republican is somebody very concerned about our $30+ trillion debt. We do have to have fundamental change. We are going to have some tough decisions. We are going to have to cut some spending that we think is good, that we think is efficient spending, that is productive, because we're out of whack and we cannot go on in this trajectory. I'm so happy that as we're discussing tax cuts and renewing them, which I think they'll do later this year, that we're pairing it with cost cuts. That is something we must do if we're going to be serious in this country about our economic fiscal dilemma. So, look, it's a serious conversation. I give him credit for starting the conversation, showing we got to change our ways.
And Theron, just on that front, look, we are seeing cuts to education, foreign aid, health, and the environment. It's also played out already in cuts we've seen in the federal government outside of just this blueprint. For the Democrats, I mean, where do you even begin to start to sort of say, look, the Republicans control all branches of government, essentially, at this point. So where do you even begin to start to sort of push back on some of these priorities that clearly the Trump administration has
Well, you
set
got to
here?
hold them accountable. And you got to also remember, Omar, that President Trump in his first term contributed to that $1 trillion debt that Brian just mentioned more so than any other president. I mean, you talk about spending. I mean, he was massive spending. But the thing that worries me the most that Democrats are talking about are the cuts to education. Let's be specific. We're talking about almost $374 million being cut in K through 12. They're eliminating these preschool programs, many of whom these working families all across the country depend on. Also, if you look at the cuts to Medicaid and to Medicare, they're through CMS, they're trying to basically abolish Medicaid, and it's under attack, and Democrats are speaking out about that. And we also got to talk about these enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies that many 24 million Americans right now are subject to lose if we don't extend these subsidies and make sure that these premiums that they could actually embody don't go up. But the bigger thing is that if you look at the polling, let's get back to this. President Trump is the lowest that he's ever been. He's the lowest of any current president in his 400 days and in 7 decades. And so he had a very low approval rating early on in his 2016 presidency. So the American people are very fed up. They don't like the way that the Republicans are leading this country. They are waiting for Democrats to continue to be more bold. And really, if you look at what Leader Hakeem Jeffries and others have been doing, Senator Cory Booker, Chairman Hakeem Jeffries, has done, talking to working class people on the steps of Washington, hearing their stories, letting them give feedback, showing that they care. Those are the kind of kitchen table, sort of very succinct primary issues that we're going to focus on.
I got to leave it there. Gentlemen, really appreciate you coming in on a early Saturday morning, whatever day it is today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Omar. Thank you.
Live show. Thank you for tuning into the live show. All right. More information. Let's get it.
Friday was a very good day. It ended a good week for the stock market. The S&P posted its longest winning streak in 20 years. The Dow posted its first 9-day winning streak since December 2023. But it's kind of like, I view the market as constantly sending signals. They're like, okay, tell us that a deal is coming. Tell us that this thing is going to be over, and we're going to buy. But, it's a reflection of the hope, it seems to me, more than the reality of what's happening actually right now.
Yeah, and I think, one more shrug and you could see the markets respond conversely. So I think you're right. But Trump made some very specific and grandiose promises, and they're unlike other promises that he made. They're unlike the Mexico will pay for a wall promise. They're unlike the I have definitive proof that Obama was born in Kenya promise. These are about your bottom line at home, the promises he made, your prosperity. And when you mess with people's money, people tend to feel a way about it. Just ask two one-term presidents, George H.W. Bush and Herbert Hoover. George H.W. Bush famously says, read my lips, no new taxes. When he went ahead and raised taxes, he was punished for that in the election. Herbert Hoover promises a chicken in every pot. The Depression comes, he can't right the ship. He's punished for that because the economy is different than every other issue.
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter, economic malaise. I mean, the American people give Trump a lot of leeway on his promises. I think on this, though, they're going to take him real seriously.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. Number one, I think he promised a lot of that stuff, and he promised it almost immediately. And there was a lot of faith in him as some sort of economic wizard. He's a businessman, the art of the deal, whatever have you, that he would be able to come in and he had a plan to fix what people were complaining about, which was high prices, economic instability, things like that. But I think it goes actually further than Trump. The Republican Party has been able to convince Americans over the past 15, 20 years, 30 years that they were better on the economy than the Democrats were. And I think that if Donald Trump, I think that he can severely injure that notion with making people go through a lot of economic pain right now because they voted directly on this issue, directly for relief. And if they don't see it, I think he could erode a lot of faith that Americans have in the Republicans, period.
Look, I'm already seeing from companies warnings to their customers. New prices go into effect May 15th. New prices go into effect May 30th. So right at this moment, we're not even there yet, but it's coming very, very quickly. Prices are going up for sure.
I think that the market's going to be the one that tells us what and where that happens with. But I think for the longer term of Trump's economic plan here, you're about to see a little bit of a shift in it right now. Not only because you're hearing about China possibly coming to the table, and the last couple of times that's happened, that has lifted the markets. Any indication a deal could be coming, everybody gets a little excited. But in the Capitol right now, they're going through budget reconciliation. If they get this tax deal done, now I understand they want to do it in one big, beautiful bill, and as the Hill dork I am, I think the fact that you have two budget vehicles available to you gives you double the power and opportunity to get big economic policy done. Everything needs to have a budgetary impact in order to beat the filibuster in the Senate, so it's very close language. So I appreciate the fact that they should use two bills, but they get this tax work done, it will help alleviate the work that needs to get done on trade and tariffs and take some of the pressure off of those points. And it's happening right now in the Capitol, and it's not being discussed about.
I don't know. I mean, can I just say I don't buy that?
Oh,
I don't buy.
I'm confused. Which
no,
part?
I don't buy
part?
the idea that tax cuts, which are generally going to be future facing, are going to alleviate the pressure on American pocketbooks, which they will start feeling as soon as this summer.
Well,
and so that's my issue, is that I think that that's a very good, theoretical, Washington talking point. But people are going to be going to the store to buy things, or going online on Amazon to buy things, and the prices are going to say double what they were saying before. And I don't think tax cuts is going to have an impact on that anytime in the
I will say one thing about tax cuts, though. I will say one thing about tax cuts, though. If those don't get extended, prices will go up for the American people. That will be the largest tax hike on the American people in history. And the people who got the most out of those tax cuts were the middle class.
I'm just talking about in the here and now. I think my issue is that basically you're saying to businesses, we're going to keep the status quo, right? Great. Mm-hmm. But they're also still getting slapped across the face with tariffs that are hitting their profits.
I think what you're
and
talking
then on
about,
top of that, the regressiveness of the tariffs is going to hurt consumers.
But I think you're making a sort of a macro point where if this happens on the Hill, it will have an impact that could affect the whole economy in a positive way. And the other thing is a micro impact in my home, right? I'm going to feel it in my wallet. I'm going to feel it in my home. I'm going to feel it in my bank account, my retirement accounts, my gas tanks. I think both can be true.
Yeah, but
the
dare I
one
say,
that
though,
voters
that matters the most,
Well, sure.
right? Like,
For
These
midterms.
tariffs are going to stick? You think they're going to stick?
I do. I think he's so he's so stubborn on this, and he's wanted this for so long. He's ignored so many economists. He's ignored the whole of the Republican Party that used to be against this. He has to see it through now. I don't think he's going to back away.
I think it might go down. It may not be 145, but I think even, let's say it's 75%.
That's still a lot.
That's still huge. That's a huge tax increase.
I'm going to say something pretty elementary here, but when I think about all of this stuff, I think about like a Jim or like Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig. Let me tell you what I mean.
Oh boy.
All right.
Okay.
So when they want to sell you on something, just listen. When they want to sell you on something, they sell you on
pass me the donuts while he's saying this?
And before and an after, right? They show you a person, and then they show you how great this person looks. Why do they show you how great the person looks? Because there's going to be a lot of pain that you're going to have to go through to get to where that person is. You're going to have to give up your favorite foods. You're going to have to go to the gym. You're going to have to do all kinds of things that are hard to do, right? The president is telling Americans to do things that are hard to do, but he doesn't have a fully formulated after picture. He doesn't have a picture of the economy or their lives that he can sell to them in a simple and a digestible way that makes someone go, I want to go to the store and pay more for goods. I think that it is worth it, the tariffs or whatever. And the reason why he doesn't have it is because I don't think it can really be articulated in the way that he's pointing out.
But he didn't need it. He got voted in without it.
Well,
Just on the promise.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, I.
What are you talking about? The reason he got to win the presidency in 2024, November 5th, was because he promised to bring down prices. And how? He also promised tariffs. He's been saying his favorite word in the dictionary is tariffs. If you actually follow Trump, you would understand that he's been talking about tariffs forever. He's been talking about how he loves the word tariffs. So when people say, well, he didn't tell American people he was going to tariff the heck out of their products. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He said it was going to tariff all of these countries to make sure we attain a fair trade deal. So they're talking about Trump's base actually support everything he's doing right now. And that's just the facts.
I would argue he didn't really actually promise this level of tariffs because he didn't.
Well, he did.
He did. He did. Oh, God. He did. He definitely did.
Bring in now this issue of the budget that he put together, because I think it really says a lot, not just about priorities as it always does for presidents, but also, do they really have a plan for how the money is going to work here? There's a lot of spending coming in on the military side of things and on Homeland Security.
Oh, yes.
And then there are cuts that are pretty deep when it comes to the programs, rental assistance block grants, low-income home energy assistance programs, clean energy, shelter and services programs over at FEMA. Those cuts are significant to those programs, but they still don't add up.
That's right, they don't.
They still don't pay for what the additional spending is.
The important thing to remember is if there is a recession, he'll know who to blame. So that's what matters. But you're exactly right about this budget. It seems like a gigantic gift to Democrats in 2026. This is not a budget that's going to help red states. I read this and I thought it's like the Bush family's back again. It's making the rich richer, making the poor poorer, cutting education, feeding the war machine. A budget is a statement of values. And the values of this budget are tanks over teachers, wealth over we the people, and the military-industrial complex over everything. And it's not going to help. And just America did have terrible inflation, but it was global because of COVID, and we had better inflation than all of our G7 capitalist allies.
Hold on just a second. Joe Biden starved America's defense.
Starved? He increased it, sir.
No,
he didn't.
Actually, go back and look at Joe Biden's first budget.
He increased
military
the defense
went up
budget.
1.7% while he was doing
increased
double-digit increases to everything else. Well, he increased everything.
He helped the
Everything.
American people.
Everything. So we have an imminent threat from China. We should be spending more on defense. We should be spending more on defense to cope with all the challenges we face around the world.
We have more defense than the next 10 largest countries combined.
Let's go back.
Doesn't matter.
So you want to encourage our NATO allies to spend more on their defense?
Oh,
That's
no,
what
I
you're
want to
saying.
encourage us to make our NATO allies our allies.
Okay,
again.
all right. Let's go back to the budget process, though. What happens when presidents send their budget? The president proposes, the Congress disposes. It happens all the time. If you look back at Barack Obama, 2 of his budgets got 0 votes. 2 others got less than 2 votes. So let's don't get too crazy about what's in this
I
blueprint.
understand that. I mean, I think the question is more just how does the math? Because it just doesn't seem to be
Elon's
working.
gonna fix it.
Math isn't supposed to math. I think
It's
at the end of
it's
the
the
day,
start of a debate.
It is. They call it the skinny budget. They call it a
it's the start of a
blueprint.
debate.
They put all this language on it to make it modifiable, to make it amenable. That this is just a starting point for the conversation. But I don't know why anybody is shocked by what the priorities were, even in this skinny blueprint. It's national defense. It's immigration. It's the sovereignty of this nation. It is eliminating.
water.
I'm sorry. Over
over
EV
Medicare and
programs.
Medicaid.
No, there are no cuts to Medicare or Medicaid anywhere in that. I would
Nowhere in
dare
this
you
budget.
to find them.
Not in this
I would
budget.
dare you to find them.
I'm looking for the- I'm looking for the part-
Guys,
We're
one at a
talking
time.
about Trump's.
Well, I'm
No,
talking
what I
about
want to allow,
his
what I want to
Republican
allow here is
Congress.
you to try and rewrite what that actually says. Nowhere in there are there any
There's a
cuts.
difference.
rewrite
There's
anything.
a difference
You are.
between
You-
what
okay, then
Trump
you're-
has
then you're being
proposed and what
dishonest.
Congress is
that.
talking
I
about. But
understand
Aaron,
that.
let me ask you really specifically, because the whole argument around immigration, especially, is we need to get our country back so that we can spend these resources on Americans. But then he's doing that while also cutting services to Americans. What about that?
So you look at things like education. If you look at what his budget blueprint has put out from what I've seen reporting wise, it is removing more of the federal bureaucracy and oversight and sending it back to the states. If you have heard from Republicans and those who believe in that, this is where it would go, which is less federal bureaucracy.
Okay,
I don't know
that's
why all of a
education,
sudden that
but what
seems like
about-
such a
Cutting
far-fetched
education
But what
funding
about
for tax cuts for
low-income
wealthy
home energy
Stay
assistance?
rid of the Department.
What
That's
about
not honest,
what
though.
about home
That's-
energy
Low-income
assistance
education is not
programs,
gonna
which
do that.
actually help a lot of rural parts of the country? What about shelter services for FEMA, which helps a lot of the South, which deals with a lot of extreme weather? I mean, what about those
I'm going to
things? Those
predict
are all
that Congress
things
will
that
put many of these things back
help
in.
his
You're right.
constituents.
That's what happens.
Well, why propose them? I
Well,
think that's the question that we're
Because
asking.
he's trying to set in a conversation that we must get federal spending under control. If we don't get federal spending under control,
You don't cut taxes for the billionaires.
he's not going to cut taxes. He's not cutting taxes.
Well, taxes for the billionaires. Everybody is getting a tax cut, okay? When people say he's only going to cut taxes for the billionaires, well, who employed you? Who owns McDonald's, Walmart, Target? All of these companies, Adobe, Nvidia, Facebook, all of these companies that people get jobs at, who owns them? Multi-billionaires. If they don't get tax cuts, how do you think that would reflect on their business? You're going to get higher prices. You're definitely going to get more tax cut off from your paycheck. So it's like when people say tax the rich, you're essentially saying tax me. Because the rich pays your salary. You hate the rich. You're getting employment from these folks. I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but tax the rich is literally the most uneducated thing anybody can say.
Taxes for
He won't cut
billionaires.
taxes.
Of course they are.
No, he's not. He's going to keep taxes as they are. Would you like to see them go up?
I would like to see taxes go up on billionaires. Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Who else?
Absolutely.
People who make
You want to
$200,000.
talk about how?
People who make over $150,000.
Should a
I'd
two-income
love to see
family?
a tax code that separated the 1% from the.
Wait.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Who else?
Absolutely.
People who make
You want to
$200,000.
talk about how?
People who make over $150,000.
Should a
I'd
two-income
love to see
family?
a tax code that separated the 1% from the.
Wait a minute. What's going to happen at the end of this year is there's going to be a tax bill, and you're going to vote yes or no, and it will include keeping tax rates the same for everyone. Are you encouraging Democrats to vote against that?
I am encouraging Democrats to tax the living hell out of the
So
wealthiest
they're going to
people in
get one
this country
chance.
that can easily afford
Keep
it.
taxes the same way they are today.
No, I do not
That's a
support
choice.
that. I want to cut taxes on working people and raise taxes on those
Your
who
choice
can
is going to be
easily
to keep the
afford to
tax
pay
rates
more.
the way they are. or
That's
raise
a
them.
losing
But Todd,
deal for
that's
Democrats.
That's why
only
voters
Todd,
put Republicans
Brad,
in office.
Brad,
And that's why
Brad,
Reaganomics doesn't work.
That's only the choice because that would be
Republicans won.
Well, exactly, because Republicans would put that choice on the table. They also have the option, because they are in power, to craft a bill that maybe doesn't do that. I mean, the reporting is that there have been discussions about how they're going to pay for all of the tax cuts on no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on tips, no taxes on everything under the sun.
You don't have to pay for a tax cut because it's the public's money to start with.
Okay, sure.
Exactly.
But my point is, Republicans could create a bill that raised taxes on certain people and lowered taxes on everybody else. They just won't do it.
Democrats would raise taxes on everyone, and that's how they're going to vote.
Exactly. Democrats, they're ready right now. They're absolutely ready right now to raise taxes on everybody. Blanket, raise the taxes on everybody. And they're going to tell you, no, we're going to raise the taxes on the rich. We just had 4 good years of Sleepy Joe. Now, I don't know why I said 4 good years, but any day the Lord has made is a good day, okay? So we had 4 years of Sleepy Joe. This man, people were suffering. Gas prices went up, inflation went up, prices went up, and then they termed the prices going higher as this corporation price gouging. Oh, they're price gouging the people. You want to increase prices? No. You want to increase taxes on the wealthy. And then you still want to tell them that they are price gouging. So this is Democrat plan, ladies and gentlemen. The Democrat, they're saying that increase taxes on the billionaires that are employing the 99% of the world, especially the United States. And then they still want to tell those corporations that lower your prices because you're price gouging.
You watch every Democrat. No, but every Democrat's going to vote to raise taxes at the end of this year on everybody. Everyone.
To raise taxes on the upper 1%.
How will they vote?
People who are making 9
Can you guarantee me?
We don't want to raise taxes.
Can you guarantee me the Democrats
are
not going to vote against keeping tax rates the same for people who make $100,000?
Let me try to fight every single day.
Hold on a second. Let me just try to disentangle this a little bit, because I think now we're kind of talking past each other. I think the question that Adrian is asking is, why won't Republicans, if this is supposed to be about the working class, not only keep taxes the same for the working class, maybe lower taxes even more for the working class, but raise them for high income earners? Why is that not on the table?
The answer to solve our problems is to grow the economy and not to grow tax revenue.
But why is that not on the table?
It is on. Here's what people need to
realize.
No
one needs a tax increase. Nobody.
This is part of the conversation that is being left out when you talk about raising the taxes on the wealthy. There are plenty of people that run their families through their businesses. Yeah. So they look like they make a bunch of money, but they are small businesses and entrepreneurs. Sure. And so for them, we want to increase the taxes, right? Because they are a sole proprietor.
We want to lower the taxes on middle class
that's how they live their lives.
We want to make it easier.
But you're not allowing those nuances there. So you want to put a number out there.
Wait.
Well, okay, so fine. I didn't need to say anything.
Let me let Van
for a lot of those small businesses that you're talking about, taxes are going to be raised on them through tariffs. They are going to see a lot of pain
and
a lot of.
Tariffs are supposed to be part of the negotiation.
Well, I'm telling you, part of the negotiation.
I feel like I always have to say this, but let me just repeat that Donald Trump, very recently, actually, just a couple days ago, said tariffs are going to help pay for tax cuts. So the idea that he just wants to negotiate is, by his own admission, not true. He wants to keep tariffs as a way to finance some of his promises. That is also a tax increase.
Those mid-level small business people that you're talking about that rely on durable and robust supply chains and rely on the ability to sell goods, they are going to experience a lot of pain right now and in the near future because of the president's economic decisions.
And so are Republicans in the House, by the way. There's going to be a lot of Republicans very not pleased with this. I don't understand how you expect to win 2026 with this.
The tariff is to renegotiate the trade deals. And of course, Trump has said, well, according to history, in the early days, tariff was always a way for the federal government to make a lot of money, and there was no income taxes. The Republicans, Trump is trying to really extinguish income taxes. That's what it's trying to do. Really, truly, it's trying to extinguish income taxes. However, it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. And to bring manufacturing back to the United States, you have to renegotiate trade deals. How do you get attention from President Xi of China without tariffs? There is no way. Trump is basically the only president who has the balls to renegotiate trade deals. Only. Everybody knows China has been ripping the United States off. A lot of countries have been ripping the United States off, but nobody had the balls to speak up, not alone enact tariffs on these countries. Nobody. So now China is saying, you know what? We're ready to renegotiate. China, almighty China, wants to renegotiate.
A judge tonight has just permanently blocked the president's executive order that targeted a law firm which represented Hillary Clinton in 2016. The judge is ruling tonight that the president's order was an unconstitutional effort to amass power. And the ruling from Judge Beryl Howell is scathing because it says this, and I'm quoting now, "In purpose and effect, this action draws from a playbook as old as Shakespeare, who penned the phrase, 'The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.'" She goes on to write, when Shakespeare's character, a rebel leader intent on becoming king, hears this suggestion, he promptly incorporates this tactic as a part of his plan to assume power. My legal source tonight is former federal prosecutor and a friend of the show, Elie Honig. I'm pretty sure you have also quoted this on this show before. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I like that quote. I dug into the Cliff's Notes. It's from Henry VI, the character that says...
You like that quote?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it doesn't mean...
You're a lawyer.
Right, so but it doesn't mean, hey, let's throw Elie Honig in the river and all his friends. It means if you want to take over, if you want to be autocratic, if you want a lawless society, get those pesky lawyers out of the way. So I think it's applicable here.
Some people might say that anyway.
Could be.
Really, though, in terms of what this ruling means,
Yeah.
we've been watching this fight with the courts and Trump all along. To say that they're permanently blocking this, I mean, what does that mean for other law firms that are fighting Trump?
I want to make a public service announcement. Every law firm that fights this in court will win. These executive orders, and I don't mean to be overly dramatic here, these executive orders are wildly, patently over the top illegal. They violate the First Amendment right to free speech. They violate the First Amendment right to free association because they punish people at law firms around these people Trump has singled out. They punish clients. They violate the right to counsel that people have, right of counsel of their choosing. It is no surprise this judge struck this down, and I think other law firms who are finding themselves in this dilemma should take a lesson from this.
But I was thinking, my first thought today was, what does this mean for the law firms that already settled with Trump and agreed to do 1 kajillion hours of pro bono for him, and also his aides made money in the process of brokering it outside the White House?
Right. The firms that have bent the knee here and entered into these quote unquote settlements, what I would call shakedown agreements, they probably are and should be feeling some buyer's remorse now. And the thing about these deals these firms have struck is they have no guarantee that they'll be protected from here on out. I mean, extortionists do not stop when you pay them the first time. What's to stop Donald Trump from saying, now I want more pro bono hours from you. Now I want more concessions about your personnel. So there's an interesting, really, rift happening here within the big law firm community where some are digging in and fighting and others are giving in, and there's actually a lot of tension and disagreement there.
Well, and Harvard is one of the institutions that is fighting back against the president. We heard from the president, who told the Wall Street Journal earlier and said, but after the president posted this morning that he is taking away Harvard's tax-exempt status, that it is decided. The White House is trying to argue that's not an official IRS move. I don't know where that puts the IRS in the middle of all of this.
Yeah. So there is a law, a criminal law, that says the president and certain other high-ranking executive officials may not request that the IRS open any investigation, period. It's a criminal law. It's a 5-year max.
Which came about because of Nixon.
Right, exactly. And unfortunately, now we are in an era, look, I'm not going to sort of glibly say, oh, the president needs to be arrested or anything like that, but we are now in an era when you see something like this happen, and you immediately know what's going to happen next at a DOJ, which is nothing. They're not going to look at it. They're not going to open an investigation. And that's just the reality of what they are. And I've read some reporting that, well, maybe the IRS opening up these investigations is coincidental. I mean, I don't buy that for a second. Trump is out there tweeting about it. I'm going to strip their tax-exempt status, flagrantly violating the rule. And next thing you know, IRS is on it.
Oh, and they just named the new acting IRS commissioner
Yeah,
as well.
fifth
There was
one.
a whole fight over that. But the president of Harvard told the Journal, if the government goes through with a plan to revoke our tax-exempt status, it would be highly illegal unless there's some reasoning that we have not been exposed to that would justify this dramatic move.
Yeah.
I mean, is it possible, though, that they find something that they use as the justification here?
I don't think so, because the way that an organization or a college loses its tax-exempt status is if they're engaged in political or commercial activity, too much of it, right? And Trump's argument is, well, Harvard is extremely liberal. The student body leans left. That's true. I mean, disclosure, I went there from law school. I'm not just saying it to say, I have to say it. But it is a liberal-leaning place. That's not the equivalent of engaging in political activity. Every student body in the country leans one way or another. Most of them lean left. But that doesn't mean colleges are engaged in political activity. He's conflating, is there an ideology that prevails on campus with actual political activity? Things like paying for campaign ads, active canvassing, using the school's resources. So I think this effort will fail in court as well.
Ellie Honig, we will see.
Very opinionated tonight.
You?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's pretty much every night. But anyway, we love to have you.
We begin tonight with breaking news in the president's campaign of intimidation and retribution against big law firms, which has been remarkably successful. He's extracted deals where they promised to give him tens of millions of dollars of free legal work. Tonight's news concerns one big firm which has refused to make a deal, Perkins Coie, which represented Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016 and which the president targeted with an executive order. A federal district judge has just struck that order down. Judge Beryl Howell writing, "No American president has ever before issued executive orders like the one at issue in this lawsuit, targeting a prominent law firm with adverse actions to be executed by all executive branch agencies, but in purpose and effect, this action draws from a playbook as old as Shakespeare, who penned the phrase, 'The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.'" CNN's Evan Perez has been going through the ruling, joins us now. So the judge gave a sharp rebuke of the Trump administration. What else did she say?
That's right, Anderson. This is a sharp rebuke because it totally cancels the executive order. This is the first order from a judge that says the entire order is unconstitutional and is blocking it in a final order. And one of the things she does is she points out that quote again from Henry VI, Shakespeare's Henry VI, and she says, in a cringeworthy twist on the theatrical phrase, "let's kill all the lawyers," she says that this executive order takes the approach of "let's kill the lawyers I don't like," sending the clear message that lawyers must stick to the party line or else. And Anderson, she goes on to point out that one of the key parts of this is the fact that it essentially makes it impossible for defendants, companies or people to choose a lawyer of their own, of their choice, essentially, because you now have to pick a lawyer that the president likes in order to defend yourself in federal court. And she says it's a clear violation of people's constitutional rights. And she also points out, Anderson, that President Trump made clear his intentions. Normally in cases like this, you have to try to figure out what was the president thinking, what was the intent of the president. In this case, he made it plainly clear in the preamble to all of these executive orders. He makes clear that he's doing it because he doesn't like who these law firms were representing, that they oppose him. And he also points out that he doesn't like their diversity practices, their hiring practices.
The whole thing is designed to intimidate them and prevent people who may get fired by this administration or want to sue this administration from actually being able to hire lawyers in Washington, D.C. with experience. Evan, stick around. I want to bring in former federal prosecutor and best-selling author Jeffrey Toobin. Jeff, we've been covering this now for a long time. Judge Howell also wrote that what the president is trying to do is contrary to the Constitution, which requires that the government respond to dissenting or unpopular speech or ideas with tolerance, not coercion. So does this ruling, does it apply? Is it just about the executive order regarding this firm, or does it apply to all the other firms as well?
It just applies to Perkins Coie, but it's important to remember that 3 other judges have also issued preliminary rulings, not a more final ruling like this one, also rejecting what the Trump administration has tried to do regarding 3 other law firms. So the scorecard at this point is 4 judges finding these orders against law firms unconstitutional, and 0 judges supporting what Trump has tried to do. Now, these cases are all going to start to move through the appellate process. Perhaps they'll go to the Supreme Court, but it is just worth noting that judges across the political spectrum in different cases involving different law firms have all said what Trump is trying to do in these completely unprecedented coercive orders against law firms is unconstitutional.
And does this render toothless any similar threats the president might decide to make to other law firms as well?
No, it doesn't. I mean, he is free to keep trying because Judge Howell's opinion only applies to Perkins Coie. Now, it becomes a precedent that other judges can look to, but it's not binding on those other judges.
And Jeff, why do you think this is so important? Well, I mean, it's not just about why do you is this so important? Because it's not just about defending high-powered law firms. I mean, they're wealthy; they can take care of themselves. But what is at stake here?
Well, what's at stake is whether lawyers work for their clients or they work for the government. I mean, the idea that the president can decide that a lawyer or a law firm has represented someone that he doesn't like, and thus can sanction those lawyers. And remember, think about the sanctions here. I mean, what Trump has tried to do to Perkins Coie is say they can't enter federal buildings. Their clients are exposed to sanctions simply because they hire Perkins Coie. These are incredibly coercive sanctions that are meant to be applied to the law firms. And the only reason is because Trump doesn't like their clients. It's not that they violated any law. And, that puts in peril the idea that all individuals, all companies have the right to pick the lawyers of their choice. Yeah. That's what's at stake here.
Evan, has the government said they're going to appeal this? I assume they will.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They haven't said yet, Anderson, but yes, I mean, every one of these things, they've decided that they want to try to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And look, and I think what Jeffrey's pointing out is extremely important here, because this set of orders has been extremely successful, for the president. As you pointed out, a number of other firms, because of this, it's had a chilling effect. And you've had a number of firms who've gone straight to the White House and tried to make deals.
Right. I think it's like hundreds of millions of dollars at this point. I forgot the actual total.
Over $1 billion. Over $1 billion is what the White House has said they have been able to get, what they say is free legal services, pro bono legal services, essentially for things that whatever the Trump wants, right, with the firm's agreement. And so that's part of this. And it's also spilled over into other things, right? They, not only law firms, but obviously they've gone after universities with Harvard. And so other universities have been afraid to stand up to the president because of this example. And so if you can go after these firms, the question is, what else can you go after? And so that's part of why this is such an extraordinary and important ruling from Judge Howell.
A federal judge just ruling that his executive order targeting Democratic-tied law firm Perkins Coie is illegal and unconstitutional. It marks the first time that a federal judge permanently blocked the president from enforcing an order to punish legal firms that he says he opposes politically. Judge Howell writes in part, quote, "No American president has ever before issued executive orders like the one at issue in this lawsuit, targeting a prominent law firm with adverse actions. This action draws from a playbook as old as Shakespeare, who penned the phrase, 'The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.'" Evan Perez is out front. And Evan, look, law firm after law firm has buckled under pressure from the president to do various deals. So now you have this ruling against the president in the case of Perkins Coie. How significant is it?
This is very significant because now you have a judge who is saying that the entire executive order is unconstitutional, Aaron. And she goes on to say beyond this, she says that there's a cruel twist to that Shakespearean quote. She says it's basically the "let's kill all the lawyers I don't like." And that's exactly what Donald Trump, what President Trump has done. Look, there is no doubt what the intent that the president has behind these executive orders, because he's made it very clear. In the preamble to all of them, he goes into chapter and verse of all of the things that he believes these law firms have done against him, against his allies, and why he dislikes them and why he is taking these actions. And so it's kind of really made it very clear for the judges to know what the intent of the president is, why he is taking action against these law firms. And so, as you pointed out, now we have three firms that have actually challenged them, but by and large, the legal industry has kind of folded. A lot of them, big law firms, have basically gone to the White House and made deals. What the White House says is that they've signed deals worth up to $1 billion of essentially pro bono work for the president in exchange for getting rid of these orders, right? Big names like Paul Weiss have made deals with the president of the United States to try to avoid getting these executive orders. And so what this judge is doing now, Aaron, is significant because it's also not only denying the parts of the executive order that had to do with their ability to get into federal buildings, for instance. She's also saying that the president can't even suspend security clearances, which is a big part of this.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And those security clearances, which they had representing both sides of the aisle always, right? That had been the precedent and the way things were.
Exactly.
All right, Evan, thank you so much. And obviously, important breaking news. So let's go now to the Democratic Congressman Adam Smith, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. Prior to joining the House, I know, Congressman, you were a lawyer in both private and public practice. You were also prosecutor for the city of Seattle. So when you hear this and you've watched law firm after law firm after law firm make these deals with Trump, what is your reaction tonight as you look at this, former prosecutor and a lawyer, to this breaking news of a federal judge ruling that his executive order, Trump's executive order targeting law firm Perkins Coie, is illegal?
Well, it's very encouraging. Look, the fact that so many law firms have bowed to Trump's pressure was incredibly troubling. Now, obviously, Perkins Coie has a very strong Seattle connection. They are one of many law firms that rejected me for a job when I graduated from law school years ago. It's a Seattle institution, but it goes way beyond just this one law firm. Trump is trying to shake down law firms to make sure that they don't represent Democrats or anyone he disagrees with. That is the action of an authoritarian dictator, not of a democratically elected president. And the fact that so many law firms just bowed to this only gives him more power. I really applaud the law firms like Perkins and others who have stood up to it. And this judge ruling helps stop what President Trump is doing. But the whole country should recognize just how bad this is for freedom and democracy, that a president could put this amount of pressure on a law firm.
Now, Congressman, as the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, I want to ask you about some developments also in the national security front tonight. Breaking news about President Trump ousting Waltz as national security advisor and replacing him with Rubio. So a person who spoke with Rubio tells CNN tonight that he plans to stay in this additional role of national security advisor for up to 6 months. So that would mean that he keeps his job as Secretary of State, 2 other positions as well, USAID as well as archivist. But we looked back, and the only person who has held the job of national security advisor and Secretary of State at the same time, Congressman, at the same time, is Henry Kissinger.
Yeah. Look, these are jobs that are vastly more complicated than back in the early 70s when that was true. And it really does jeopardize our ability to meet our national security needs, to not have people in all of these other positions. So it's part of consolidating power around the few. It ties in to some degree with the law firm conversation. Trump wants all the power. He doesn't want people around him to have power. And that consolidation weakens the U.S. by taking away needed talent in different places to make sure we're covering all of the ground we need to cover. Secretary Rubio has more than enough to do as Secretary of State. The National Security Advisor is supposed to be the day in and day advisor tracking all that's going on in the world. Secretary of State needs to be out in the world doing diplomacy. This will limit the ability of the U.S. to meet the challenges we face.
So the White House today just confirmed this story about the military parade. Now, this has been percolating for a while, right? We'd heard from the mayor of Arlington that they had been looking into it. And now the White House confirms that Trump will host a military parade on June 14th. That is his birthday. He turned 79 on that day. It is also the Army's 250th birthday. Now, the AP reports that the Army plans dated this week, so they came out this week, call for more than, just to go through these numbers, I'm sure you know them offhand at this point, but 6,600 soldiers, at least 150 vehicles, and they don't say what those vehicles are, as in how heavy they are to the roads, and 50 helicopters. So, I mean, it's the Army's birthday. It's Flag Day. It's also Trump's birthday. Is this a good use of time and money right now?
Absolutely not. It's also the birthday of the original Adam Smith, the Scottish economist, but that's not relevant either. Look, this is a horrible misuse of military funds. We have a very tight budget, big needs. This is a waste of money, which is bad. Worse is the authoritarian dictator overtones of this decision to have the military honoring an individual instead of the country. I've also heard that President Trump wants to change the name of Veterans Day to something about Victory in World War I Day, so that we're not honoring all veterans the way that we used to. This consolidation of power around Trump's ego at the expense of the American people, and in this case our military, is deeply troubling and not what this country is supposed to be about. It's in Russia and North Korea that we force the military to honor the dear leader. It is not supposed to be what the United States of America is about, regardless of whether or not you're a Republican, a Democrat, conservative, liberal. You should be troubled by us looking like a dictatorship instead of a representative democracy.
Thank you. Just thank you. So it's a bad thing to celebrate the Army, the military, the president's birthday. It's bad? Man, I don't get it.
Individual judges, these individual judges are overstepping. What you're essentially saying is that the president, who is the commander in chief, cannot determine when we are being invaded. An individual district court judge is going to decide that? No, thank you.
Can I just ask a simple question? Who gets to decide whether the United States is at war
the
or
president,
not?
in my opinion.
No.
If we're being invaded,
Actually,
I want the commander in chief to know.
Scott, no. It's actually the Congress.
When you're asking if we're being
according to the law, okay, Congress dictates if there's going to be war or not, okay? But if we are being invaded, the executive power should have the right to say, you know what, we're being invaded, and wait for Congress to declare war.
Commander-in-Chief.
Scott, no. It's actually the Congress.
When you're asking if we're being invaded.
I'm asking.
You want to call Congress and see if we're being invaded?
I'm asking a basic constitutional
We'll be taken over
question.
before they ever get to the committee.
Who gets to decide whether the United States is at war? The answer is Congress.
I'm talking about if we're being
When
invaded.
the president...
Yeah. At war and being invaded, these are two different situations. Because, when it's Trump, everybody tries to say, here's this, is that. Illegal immigration has been a major issue in the United States. I mean, look at last year. People were getting raped, burnt alive by illegal immigrants. So if the commander-in-chief says, you know what, we're being invaded, this is an invasion. Isn't that worth it to stop the rape, to stop the killing, stop all of this nonsense going on around the United States? This isn't war. This is invasion.
You can't use colloquialisms.
We're at war.
Yeah.
He has to
show we're actively
prove,
at war,
and
not
really
a
what he needs to do is go to Congress.
Well, you guys
and
discussed it in committee. We'll let in another 20 minutes.
Wait a second, though. I thought the genius of our system was that we weren't beholden to one guy's opinion. That the genius of the American system of government was that we had three co-equal branches, and in those co-equal branches, decisions were made about how we go about doing things. Now, we want to tear that to shreds so that we can kowtow to one guy's opinion. Then we are in a monarchy. We're being ruled.
What's the distinction between
what are you talking about?
And whether the United States is actually at war with an entity or a nation? And there is a distinction. Now, nobody is saying here Trump can't deport people because
oh yeah, they're saying that
Barack Obama deported a lot of people.
Barack Obama was the deporter-in-chief. Okay, he was the deporter-in-chief. Trump hasn't even deported half of what Barack Obama has deported, and yet everybody's suing the Trump administration, suing Pam Bundy, suing Kash Patel, suing Tom Homan, suing the president himself.
Sochi. Yeah, you remember this.
Yeah.
He deported a lot of people, and he did so based on the existing law. It is possible to do.
It is
not.
It's not an applicable law.
That's right. As the go ahead.
Because
as a lawyer, I would
created
like
because
to
there's
answer
a determination that law has to be used at wartime when there's an invasion. But war's different than it was in 1812.
No, we cannot use colloquialisms to say, "Oh, we're generally at war."
The Houthis are not a country, and yet we're bombing them.
But let's be clear about this. Nobody
we're
is
being
saying
invaded
that Trump doesn't
every
have
day.
the ability to deport people. He has the ability to deport people, and he should, right? There was a lot of people coming in that should not be here. He has the right to do that. But he's trying to use this act to get around due process. And the court is saying this act does not apply. They're not telling him not to deport. They're saying use the process that's in place because this act does not apply.
As much bureaucracy and red tape as possible.
No, it's not bureaucracy.
It's not red tape.
It's
the law. What we're trying to do is use the law. The law. I mean, look, is it such a big problem to say you can do things, but you have to do them lawfully? There's a process.
We think this is lawful,
but it's not.
No, but the court just said it's
one
not.
judge,
one stupid judge, and I want to see what the rest of them do.
Why
is
that
stupid? Because
I guess
he
we have to
disagrees
remind
with
everybody
your
here
assessment of
that
Donald
Trump
Trump.
appointed this judge.
I don't care.
Okay?
Again,
so this is a Trump appointed judge.
He's not.
And this is why I respect Trump. Someone who he appointed is saying, you know what, you can't be deporting people like this. It's totally fine. It's totally fine to not agree with what I am doing. And who knows if they have something on the judge? Who knows? I mean, we just heard about a judge in, was it Nevada, that was harboring illegal migrants in his home with his wife. Another judge was literally trying to help an allegedly illegal migrant out of her courtroom. So are we supposed to trust 1,000% the judge? I don't know. In my opinion, I just don't know. If judges are helping illegal migrant, hiding illegal migrant, are we supposed to just trust the judges? I mean, I don't know. I just don't know.
Infallible. Judges make stupid decisions all the time.
Well, okay, how about this? So you say the judge is stupid. How do we know that? How do we know that the president is stupid?
I'm sure that's your opinion.
Well, it certainly is.
But he won the election.
So what does that mean?
I don't think anybody is stupid. I think all three branches have the right to operate the way they want. I think the president of the United States has the right to operate based on his opinion because he's voted in. But the judicial branch has the right to interpret the meaning of the law the way they see it. That's their right. And to make proof a requirement. Due process
This is
of
a key question.
requirement.
What if another group of people, say not illegal aliens, but just some other group from somewhere else, actually came to the shores of the United States, not a nation, but say a group, any kind of group, and actually did come ashore and try to invade, I don't know what else you would call it, the United States? Would you run to court and ask a federal judge if the president of the United States
they would.
Can
folks
we
would.
defend the nation now?
But that's
can
not
we
what's
stop
that's not what we're talking
It
about.
is. They're coming across.
You were also
doing that.
generalizing here. You were
Yes.
talking about, I agree with you. I agree with you, Scott.
But what's the
that
difference?
Hold on,
What's
listen
the
to me.
Because there would be a declaration of war and then the act would
If there are gay members and if they're killing or raping women in this country, they should absolutely be deported, and there should be deportation orders, and there should be a process, and there is a process to deport them. You are saying that every person that is here illegally is raping people, and
No,
that
I
is
did not
not
say that.
true.
You're lying.
You're saying they're
You're
all
lying.
part of these gangs.
lying.
They all
Of course she's lying. Of course she's lying. Scott Jennings never said that every illegal are rapist or whatnot. He never said that. However, your first act into the United States cannot be illegal act. You cannot try to come to the United States illegally and then expect due process, because your first act was already against the law. So why would you expect due process? Isn't this common sense? But the Democrats are saying that as long as their feet touches the United States soil, they are due for due process, or they eligible for due process. And it's like their first act was an illegal act, which is crossing the border illegally. Nobody's saying that every illegal are rapists or killers or no, that's not what everybody's saying. Some people just have life hard and they want a better life. Okay, they want to come to the United States to find something better. That's what everybody does. The United States is the greatest country on earth. So everybody wants to come to the United States. I'm in the United States. This is why I came to the United States, of course. However, it took me 5 years to become a United States citizen. So due process is allowed. However, if your first act is coming into the United States illegally, then why would you want or why would you think you are eligible for due process?
They're invading our country. They're doing all these things.
You're certainly associating them.
They're not all violent, but
They are not all violent. They're not all violent. And everybody, whether they are 2 years old or whether they are 90 years old and have been in our country the entire time, they deserve a process. The criminals.
I'm sorry. What process did they follow to get here? The process of breaking our laws?
Well, because there is a law. There are laws in order, and there are deportation proceedings to get these people out of our country.
Listen, how long do you want this to last?
Oh my goodness. We have homeless veterans. You have people who are literally struggling every day. Americans struggling every day. Especially the ones who have served the United States. And here you have liberals, Democrats saying that we're going to fight for illegal immigrants. This is why they lost the election in 2024. You're fighting for a lost cause. This is a lost cause because what are you talking about? Americans do not want illegal immigration. They don't. That's why Trump won every swing state. I mean, who was the last person to win every swing state that was a Republican? Almost nobody. Trump literally won every swing state. And now the liberals want to say, well, you better go focus on Americans. Democrats and liberals should focus on Americans, American veterans, American people, America economy, America's border. Focus on Americans. Stop focusing on things that you shouldn't focus on. This is why you lost the election.
Who is here did not invade our country.
All right, Batya, let me let you get a word in.
Well, to me, like the energy in defense of these gangbangers.
I'm not defending them.
I just said people said
gang should leave.
I feel like that poem where it's like, first they.
And when people say, you know what, I support Trump, but I don't like the way he's doing it. Oh, I support Trump, but the way he's doing it is illegal. You're talking about the way he's doing his stuff is illegal. However, these folks came in here illegally. And how is it illegal what he's doing? How?
Came for the guy who beats his wife, and I said nothing because I don't beat my wife. And then they came for the guy who said I love killing Jews, and I said nothing because I don't love killing Jews. And now they came for the gangbangers, and I said nothing.
Can I say something real quick? Do you know why that triggers me? That triggers me because I come from a place where a whole bunch of people, they're American citizens, but they're thrown away. They're thrown away because they might have committed crimes, because they got in trouble when they were young.
You should be the angriest that they care about the gangbangers and not those people.
No, what I care about is that there is a system of laws that is supposed to protect the due process of those people.
Yeah.
And that has to matter more than what society thinks about whatever they have
didn't
done.
get due process. I don't know why the Democrats.
That's true. Let's go. Exactly. Like, you are fighting a lost cause, yo. What are you doing? You're supposed to be fighting for your people. Your people, bro. You're supposed to be fighting for your people. You're fighting for illegal immigration. Bro, please.
not
why is it
angry
okay for
about
anybody
that.
else to not get
Because
due
they're not
process?
citizens. We do not owe them the same thing.
Wait, okay.
It has to mean something to be an American.
Basia, you are saying essentially that you don't like the way that the law is applied in this instance, and you would like to change it, which is fine.
I'm not saying that, Abby. I'm saying every other district judge has ruled in Trump's favor
That's
on
not
this.
true. That is absolutely not true. That is not
That is
true.
not true.
Nobody, no other
That is
judge,
not
and let me
true.
clarify this. This is important.
And
No
by the
other
way,
judge.
it will go to the Supreme Court.
Let me let Dante
No
finish,
other
and then we gotta
judge
go.
has issued an opinion on this specific issue.
Yes, they've not ruled against it.
No. What the Supreme Court said was the judge that it was in front of did not have the authority to make this decision. It wasn't in the right district, so he sent it to Texas. This is the first judge that's ruled on this actual case of whether or not this rule or this law applies, the Enemies Aliens Act. And they said it does not apply. This is the first time it was ruled on
Six other
that.
federal judges have issued provisional orders on this issue of whether and how, but really specifically how.
But it's
the
a
Trump
constitutional question, though,
administration
because they
can
think
deport these people.
Because you all are debating the statutes and the judge's right to oversee a statute. What the Trump administration is arguing is that this is a foreign policy issue, and we have sole right under the Constitution to execute American foreign policy. So they actually see themselves as above this conversation about individual judges micromanaging.
And I think
foreign
that's a
policy.
novel interpretation. We got to go, but that's, I mean,
you've heard multiple officials
Scott,
say that.
I think you would acknowledge this is a novel interpretation of.
I would add proper as well.
Okay, novel interpretation of
And
the use
proper.
of this particular statute for
And the only
immigration.
purpose of this use of
Yeah.
this statute is to get around due process. Everything else is the same,
I think the
except for this
purpose is to
statute, you
protect
don't
American
need due
citizens from
process.
the invasion.
And why do we want to get around that?
Or do you, man, please. Man, please. This folks.
We started off the broadcast tonight
It's
with
like-
the president's
it's
cabinet
like-
shakeup, and that's, of course, only a fraction of what's unfolded
They don't love America, in my opinion.
over the last 102 days of the second Trump administration. The question is, what are voters making of it all? CNN's Van Jones has been talking to Trump supporters dating back to 2016. He is, as you know, a Democrat who is a former senior advisor to President Obama. For tonight's report, he met with a small group of black voters, a man and a woman from South Carolina and another woman from North Carolina, all of whom voted for President Trump. CNN's exit polling shows Mr. Trump got 8% of the black vote in 2016, and that grew slightly into the teens over the next two elections. Here's Van's report from Greenville, South Carolina.
There they are.
You do well. And here we are in South Carolina with 3 Trump voters. You weren't always a Republican.
No. Actually, I come from a family that was like super Democratic. My first time voting, I voted Democrat. I voted for Joe Biden.
What about Trump appealed to you?
Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, you can.
I mean, part of it is he's an asshole. I like authenticity.
You voted for Obama then you voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. But 2020, you voted for Donald Trump. What made the change?
I began listening to someone, her name is Candace Owens, and I read her book, and it just opened my eyes to maybe he's not this person that I have been led to believe that he was.
So you voted against Trump in 2016.
Yes.
But then in 2020, you voted for him?
Absolutely.
Why?
I saw how things were going during his first term, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I was pleased with what was happening. I saw the economy getting better. I saw country relations in certain countries getting better.
What are some things that he's doing that you do like?
For me, I like the border. I just don't like the idea of someone coming here illegally and getting benefits that can serve my community. So that's the reason why I support him on that border policy.
When you think about the border, you think about people coming here who are getting more help than people who live here and who were born here.
Yeah. And I got that perspective not from news channels. I got it from social media. TikTok is like a holy grail. We even see it with the things that we learn about the United States government outside of the United States. People are showing Americans, hey, look at what's going on. Do y'all know that your government is doing this? Have you seen this? Have you looked at it from this perspective?
You know, people, when they think about a Trump voter, they usually think about like a white dude with like a red hat on and a pickup truck. And y'all are not that at all. So Donald Trump's team went in, they took down Harriet Tubman's picture for a quick minute. They're trying to like knock out the black museums. What does that have to do with the price of eggs, and how does that impact you?
In some ways, it's a slap in the face. In other ways, I don't care. I care more about how I'm going to take care of my children.
I don't think the average American cares about that. I know I am sick and tired of seeing Black people sit there and complain about something, but not taking action and steps to actually try to change things in an appropriate manner.
Under the Trump and Biden administration, they came to certain agreements with police departments to be less brutal toward the Black community. Trump has now ended all that. How does that help the Black community?
I have a lot of issues with police reform and just with how police officers are treated as a whole. My husband is currently going through the process to become a police officer. The amount of hatred that cops get, even the best ones, I think has become a huge problem because it has been, especially around election times when it definitely comes out of like, oh no, the cops are bad. The cops hate you because you're Black. They're immediately deemed as evil.
This man is talking about running for a third term. Now, what do you think about that?
The third term, for me, absolutely not. I think it's at the end of these 4 years, it's time to move on.
This is a prime example of him trolling people because people have said, they're like, oh, if he gets in the office, he's going to be a dictator. He's going to try to run for a third term. So he's like, okay, y'all think I'm going to do that? I'm going to mess with y'all and say this to tick y'all out.
I thought you loved this man
Exactly.
because he's so authentic and he's
Exactly.
But
such a
you
truth
need
teller.
to know the difference between somebody
Trolling the heck out of these
somebody,
folks.
and this is a prime example of him being a troll.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would. Now, in the future,
There we go.
I am not a diehard Democrat or diehard Republican. If there were a Democratic candidate who was more aligned
Exactly.
for me, then I would vote Democrat.
If you go back in time, would
Exactly.
you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
Yes.
Exactly.
I think
Y'all
I might know
doing
the
way too
answer on
much
this.
with this.
She said yes. It's immediately yes. No, I'm sorry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
1,000% absolutely yes.
And Van Jones joins me now. It's interesting, most of the information that they are getting.
These are people that look like me, right? And they voted for Trump. I voted for Trump too, okay? Because everybody's tired of you not putting Americans first, of you fighting for people that are not contributing to the country. These folks are traveling to El Salvador to bring back people that Trump is deporting. But yet you have people, veterans on the street, begging for money. Americans begging for money on the street. You're going to El Salvador to bring back whoever.
Or misinformation they may be getting is coming from online.
Really, 100%. The thing that surprised me the most was how much social media is dictating, especially the younger guy. You know, he said, look, I'm learning all this stuff about America that I didn't know. I'm like, where are you learning from? TikTok. China. Guys, you're a Republican and you're taking the Chinese narrative about your own country to heart. But that was a big part of their whole information ecosystem.
Yeah,
social media.
Does it seem to you that they follow news closely? I mean,
no, that was the other thing too. Is like, you know, one of the women said, "Look, I do not watch any of the media." She says, "You know, I have some influencers I follow. Candace Owens being a big deal, and Newsmax." And that is their information system. And listen, these are hardworking people. They're good people. They care about the country, but they are in a completely different information environment than people who I talk to every day.
Van Jones, thanks very much.
Okay, here we go. Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel, and more. There we go. Jasmine Crockett. She's like the new star in the Democrat Party.
And it may not happen, especially if you listen to what some Republicans are saying, and certainly if you're listening to Democrats. My congressional source tonight is the Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, and it's great to have you here. I just wonder what you make of how this is playing out among Republicans, because Speaker Mike Johnson endorsed this. He praised it. But we heard from several Republicans who said they didn't like it. Senator Roger Wicker said that the president's advisors were apparently not listening because the Pentagon spending. Senator Mitch McConnell said it was material neglect. Susan Collins called it late and expressed concern over those cuts as well. What do you think is going to happen here?
Listen, I have no idea. Unfortunately, I don't feel like we're living at a time in which these representatives, whether they're senators or House members, are listening to their constituents. If you listen to your constituents, then you will hear pain. And that pain is spread across the political spectrum. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, the cuts that you talked about, they are going to impact everyone. And it's interesting, as we are going through reconciliation, we had a reconciliation markup in oversight as well as judiciary. So I had a very long night on Wednesday. And to listen to them, the things that they were not willing to say that they were okay with cutting, or the things that they were willing to cut, right? It's absolutely insane. And I have to tell you that the House budget Democrats have made sure that we have every single district listed out with the amount of people that will be impacted by the Medicaid cuts, with the amount of people that will be impacted by the SNAP cuts. But you even went a lot deeper there. And here's the reality. You said that he wants there to be a portion of the budget that goes up to $1 trillion on the defense side. And when we look at defense, you know who can't pass a clean budget or a clean audit? It's defense. They have failed the very last 7 audits. So why would they continue to get raises, which they always do, yet we're going to hurt the most vulnerable amongst us?
Yeah, and they're saying that it's targeted. It's for certain programs of the Pentagon. It wouldn't just be to boost overall spending. But I still think it's a good question in terms of what that looks like. But do you think the president will get what he wants here from Republicans? I mean, what is your sense of watching your colleagues across the aisle?
It seems like they do whatever he wants them to do at all times, right? Like behind closed doors, they will talk about how these things are crazy. You can find plenty of Republicans that will tell you that these tariffs are a problem. They will tell you that, and they know that it's a problem. This is why they don't want to go out and listen to their constituents by having town halls. This is exactly why, if you tune in and watch any of these hearings, when it comes down to marking up these bills where these cuts are supposed to be, you know who won't even defend them? The Republicans. We sat in hours and hours and hours of in listening to amendments as we were going through the markups. And every time we started calling out specific Republicans and said, Congressman such and such, what do you think? And they literally were silent. It was almost like they were told, don't say anything because we can't win. We just have to vote down these common sense amendments and get through this because this is what we've been told to do.
Well, and on the Pentagon spending part of this is the wish list includes the Golden Dome, which is basically this new missile defense shield, new space missions to Mars and also to the moon. The question is who would benefit from that? And based on the person who has massive federal contracts for that right now is Elon Musk. I do wonder, though, given the backlash that some Republicans have seen at town halls and Democrats who are accused by some constituents of not doing enough to push back against Elon Musk spending bill here.
I mean, it's all about making sure that he and his friends are happy. That's it. So, yeah, absolutely. I can see that, we've talked about this Gold Dome situation and Elon. I don't know that I'll see that in there. I'll be perfectly honest. I don't know. I think that they may say this is where we kind of draw the line. There was an increase even under President Biden for defense as well. And that came as a part of a negotiation to raise the debt ceiling the last time. They said, well, when we get to the budget, you've got to make sure that you do this increase. But here's the bigger issue. We can talk about the specifics of cuts and where there's going to be increases. The real issues are this, is that when you start to cut, regardless of if you think it's a handout or whatever you think it is, this impacts all of us. Even if you are not the person that say is on Medicaid, when you have to show up to that hospital or when you have to go see your doctor or when your children are having to go to school with other children that aren't getting their health care. Listen, we learned this in the pandemic, that you can't just say, oh, well, I have enough money so I can escape this. You can't. This is going to impact those of us that aren't the 1%ers.
Well, and obviously we're seeing disagreement among Republicans. Democrats also are not agreeing. No one seems to be able to strike the balance on where you're going, what's the best way to respond to President Trump. Vice President J.D. Vance was asked asked tonight who he believes is leading the Democratic Party, and I want you to listen to his answer.
Do you think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, is the new leader? Could it be Vance AOC in 2028?
President AOC, the stuff of nightmares, Brett. Thank you. You've ruined my sleep for this
evening. Who is the leader of the Democratic Party?
I don't know. Honestly, I
think about it?
I think to the extent the Democrats have a leader, Donald J. Trump is the leader of the Democratic Party.
They're against him
because they're just against everything that he does.
Oh. Is Trump leading the Democratic Party?
Under no circumstances. And I think that he absolutely, in fact,
Of course he is. You guys have no actual policy for Americans. The only thing you talk about when you say don't vote for Trump is, well, vote for us because we are not Trump.
He had my name in his mouth here recently. No, listen, that is not true. But I do think that one of our problems right now is that everybody's like, who is our leader? And I keep trying to tell people that you are waiting on somebody to come and save you, but your savior is you. It is the people. The most, as we listen to the vice president speak, or Vice President Kamala Harris, let me just say that. As we listened to her speak on Wednesday, one of the things that she talked about being inspired by was the people. And that is what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to make sure that, listen, no matter how you associate politically, this is about us. And right now, Trump has made it about him and his rich billionaire friends.
So if you were asked who the leader of the...
This is about us. Exactly, Jasmine. This is about us, not traveling to other countries to bring people back to the United States. I'm sure in Texas, where she's supposed to be supporting her people, they have no homeless veterans. Oh, yeah. They have no homeless veterans in Texas. I see.
Democratic Party is, you would not say any elected official. You would say the voters.
I would absolutely say the people.
Speaking of leadership and what that looks like, there was sad news in the House this week when your colleague Jerry Connolly announced that his cancer has returned. He's going to be stepping away from his role as the lead Democrat on House Oversight. Yeah. That's a key position. Are you interested in taking that position?
Yeah, listen, I first must say that we have all benefited from the service of Jerry Connolly for 30 years. And I hate to hear it, but I am the vice ranker on the Oversight Committee. And if given an opportunity to lead, I am ready to go on day one.
And so you are throwing your hat in the ring for that?
If there is an election. He's not resigned his post, but we know that he's not seeking re-election.
Trump is their mentor.
So it may be next term.
She just said, I'm ready to go on day one. Trump is the Democrats' mentor for sure.
Or that post opens.
Why do you think that you would be the best Democrat to take that position?
Because I think
which is essentially to fight the president and his agenda.
Exactly. It is. Listen, oversight has so much latitude. But beyond that, we are allowed to conduct investigations. We are allowed to send out subpoenas and get documents. And here's the deal. My legal experience, I think, helps me be able to kind of guide through that part. But one thing we've always done really well as Democrats is get down and do the work. But we've got to communicate what it is that we were able to get in that work and translate it. And so I think that I can not only do the work, but make sure that people understand this is why we're having these problems at the FDA. This is why we're having these problems at the VA. This is why we have planes that are falling out of the sky. It is to do the investigation, find out about these firings and how they are impacting us. The information that this administration wants to hide from the American people, I want to make sure I can shine a light on it.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you for your time tonight. Great to have you here on
Thank you. Good to see you.
Up next here for us, President Trump has threatened to strip federal...
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. Here we go. More updates, all right? Mark Carney, Prime Minister
on Tuesday,
Canada.
I had
this man will
a very
be a big deal
constructive
for
call
Trump,
with President
for sure.
Trump, and we agreed to meet next Tuesday in Washington. Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our two sovereign nations. My government will fight to get the best deal for Canada. We will take all the time necessary, but not more, in order to do so. In parallel, we will strengthen our relationships with reliable trading partners and allies. Canada has what the world needs, and we uphold the values the world respects.
What specifically do you want to get out of your first in-person meeting with President Trump? And will you be focused on trying to get the tariffs lifted?
Thank you for the question. For the first meeting,
Mark Carney is very, very connected in Europe, and this guy has a long list of connection with the World Bank, and he's definitely going to be a pain in the a-hole for the Trump administration, especially being close to the United States. But Trump is definitely smart because Canada needs the United States. Canada is they have a very large land mass, but they don't have a lot of people. Like Canada and Texas almost has the same people or population. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for Canada to even try to stand toe-to-toe with the United States.
As I mentioned in my remarks, and the President and I discussed when we had our constructive call, there are two sets of issues. There are the immediate tariffs, both sectoral and so-called reciprocal and fentanyl tariffs, and then there is the broader relationship. So addressing both sets of issues. We'll see how that progress goes. It's important to get engaged immediately, which has always been my intention, has always been his intention, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity for quite a comprehensive set of meetings that will take place on Tuesday.
How do you avoid an Oval Office ambush like we saw happen to President Zelensky?
Look, I go there with the expectation of constructive, difficult, but constructive discussions. That's the spirit of the conversations that the President and I had. You go to these meetings well prepared, understanding the objectives of your counterpart, and always acting in the best interest of Canada, and we'll go from there.
In your second call with the President, did Mr. Trump outright say or insinuate at any point that Canada should become the 51st state?
Oh, it's over for Canada, really.
All right.
So
we've heard Mr. Trump on April 23rd and his surrogates throughout the final days of the campaign reiterate the idea that they believe Canada should become the 51st state. On the campaign trail, you said on multiple occasions that respect for Canada would be one of the key things in terms of having a meeting with him. Do you think over the past few days we have seen respect for Canada from the Trump administration?
Look, it's always important to distinguish want from reality. La volonté et la réalité, right? What someone wants and what is reality, and what the Canadian people clearly have stated, virtually without exception, is this will never, ever happen. And if any of the leaders of the party and their representatives would attest to that, I think the votes attest to it. I think the public dialogue attests to it as well. We're meeting as heads of our government to discuss that partnership. Now, I'm not pretending those discussions will be easy, or they won't proceed in a straight line. There will be zigs and zags, ups and downs. But as I said in my remarks, I will fight for the best deal for Canada, and only accept the best deal for Canada, and take as much time that's necessary.
To my colleague's point, the White House's public position has continued to be that Canada should be the 51st state. You yourself have said that Donald Trump is trying to break Canada. Considering all that, how can you expect good faith negotiations when you travel to Washington next week?
Look, I think first I've had the direct conversation with him on whatever day it was, Tuesday, I guess it was, a couple of days ago. And we agreed to have those negotiations. Very clear discussion between us, as I said, very constructive. I would say the time allocated to our meeting and the seniority of he's the president, so that's as senior as you get, but the other members of his administration who will be assisting at those meetings suggests the seriousness of the discussions. Again, do not expect white smoke out of that meeting. There'll be white smoke probably later somewhere else in the world this month, but do not expect that. But so that's the first thing, is just the level of the direct dialogue, the discussion, the level of people there. The second point, I'll make it quickly, and thank you for restricting the question so others can get in, is that he respects, as others who are good negotiators, and he's one of the best negotiators, they respect strength. That's why we're building Canada strong. There's lots of reasons to build Canada strong, but the point is, and I will make this point repeatedly, we have more than enough to do here at home. That point about we can give ourselves more than the Americans can take away is absolutely right. We can have a bigger boost to our economy, to incomes, to jobs, by focusing on building one Canadian economy, by building these nation-building projects, by focusing on getting productivity up, by reducing government waste, by driving investment in this country. And so that is a good in and of itself. We're going to focus on that while we have these negotiations with the Americans. And if the negotiations with the Americans take longer, so be it. We've got more than enough to do here.
Everybody has something to say. Okay, he's talking about if the negotiations with the United States takes too long, we got a lot of things to do in Canada. Okay, let's see you do it then. Let's see you do it then, Brody. All right, Mark. Good luck. He's having, this is how everybody does. Everybody acts like, we can stand up to Trump. He's a bully. He doesn't respect anybody. He's a narcissist. He's Hitler. He's whatever. And then they kiss the ring, just like President Xi of China is about to do.
Wall Street closing out the week just moments ago. All three indices in positive territory here at the closing bell. A couple reasons why. One being a better than expected monthly jobs report. But the one that's driving everything is China. Beijing today, for the first time, signaling they might, maybe, possibly, perhaps, could be open to thinking about talking about a trade deal with the United States. It's enough for the markets. The Commerce Ministry saying they're looking at proposals from the U.S. to start.
This is why people respect Trump. This is why people voted for Trump. This is why people trust Trump. And this is why people love the man called Trump. Because he will tell you, this is what I'm going to do, and he would work his ass off to get that done. He said he was going to secure the border. He's been doing it the moment he got in the Oval Office. Actually, before he got in the Oval Office. And now he said he was going to renegotiate trade deals with China because everybody knows that China has been what? Taking advantage of the United States, ripping off the United States for years, intellectual properties. And now President Xi is saying, well, we're going to look at the conversation with the Trump administration and probably we're going to do something about the tariffs. Yes, you need the United States, China. China needs the United States. And that's the thing that Americans need to understand. China needs the United States. Some Americans think, well, Americans need China. America, we have to understand that China is the largest producer, manufacturer on earth. We get it. But the United States is the largest consumer in the world. So who are you going to manufacture for if the largest consumers are telling you that we need better trade deals? He has to kiss the ring. President Xi has to kiss the ring because at the end of the day, you have to make sure your economy is going great as well. China's economy ain't great right now. It's not great. Even the real estate market is crashing. So most Americans are saying, well, it's going to be hard for Americans. It's going to be worse for Chinese.
Talks. The Wall Street Journal reporting that China is looking at fentanyl as a possible end to any discussions, with the country's security czar asking what exactly the U.S. wants to see China do in that area. Most analysts and economists will tell you that this is not really opening the door. It is basically just acknowledging that the door exists someplace. But when that story published, the markets did spike. While you were sleeping, though, President Trump imposed a massive tariff that you might actually feel pretty soon. It's the famous now anyway, de minimis loophole. That's the one that most of us had no idea existed before this, but now realize it means that all of our online shopping is going to be that much more expensive. It is the one that has allowed things worth $800 or less to come into the country duty-free. That one expired at midnight, so take a look at your Shein or Temu or Quince receipts in the coming days. I'm a little too old to perhaps pronounce those correctly, but hey, what are you going to do? Well, talks with China are closer now than maybe a few days ago. The one conversation that we do know will happen is with Canada. Mark Carney, the recently elected prime minister, coming to the White House on Tuesday. What's normally a meeting between two longtime allies, likely to be a little awkward this time.
Do you think over the past few days we have seen respect for Canada from the Trump administration?
Look, I would. We're meeting as heads of our government to discuss that partnership.
Could you see that hesitation from the new prime minister? Can't imagine why that might be there. All right, our panel joins us now. CNN contributor, New York Times journalist, and podcast host Lulu Garcia-Navarro, CNN political commentator Jonah Goldberg, former senior spokesperson for the Harris-Walz campaign, Ian Sams, and former Speaker Pro Tem Patrick McHenry. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. Ian, welcome to the arena on your first day. Jonah, I want to start with you big picture because, the markets, I don't want to say it's like, a dog with a bone or a treat, but that's a little bit how it feels nowadays. When I sit down here at 4 o'clock, the markets are closing. It's like, has somebody somewhere tossed the dog treat into the water for them to catch, or has the place, being told it's not going to be fed for the next week? How serious or real do you think this overture from China is, and what does it mean?
Well, look, we are, I think today's May 2, so that means we are 1 month past Liberation Day, and I'm so excited.
Do you feel liberated?
I feel extremely liberated. At the end of the day, China has an interest in coming to some sort of deal. The United States has an interest in coming to some sort of deal. Whether it is an improvement on the status quo from April pre-Liberation Day remains to be seen. There's a huge debate in sort of Trump world and Trump world adjacent about whether Trump is going to see this stuff through or find an off-ramp. And because the weirdness of all this is that they did it all backwards. It's like they front-loaded all the political pain, all the economic pain for the promise of reward down the road. And this is just simply unsustainable. The market volatility alone is not a healthy thing. And so I think they're going to come up with something face-saving.
Right. Well, and the fear itself can obviously lead to a recession.
Yeah, I think they are not yet faced with the consequences of their actions. We're just starting to feel that now, and we will be feeling it in the weeks to come. So that, I think, is when the rubber hits the road and when we're really going to see if Trump will see this through or he will not see it through. Up until now, you saw the jobs report today, a good jobs report. The economic news has been a little bit all over the place, but it's not like people are really, really feeling the pain. They will be soon, and that's when I think the political ramifications will be seen.
Well, Patrick McHenry, I have to say, I was wishing you were on set with us the other day as we were breaking down what Trump had to say about, I believe it was dolls. The kids are going to only have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls. The dolls are going to be more expensive. As the mom of 2 young children, I don't know if your kids are happy when you say no more dolls for you. I do say we can't have more toys occasionally, but obviously it's my wallet that this impacts. I was just stunned that he said that from a purely political strategic perspective. Was that a mistake?
Well, if this was the Romney era or the George W. Bush era, it would be the outrage of the month. But not today. It's like that was a part of an afternoon news cycle, and the next day it's something new. There is so much noise right now. There's so much noise happening in Washington that we're all trying to track and cover, and we're trying to run down everything that's happening here, but we're missing the actual signal here. The strategic view of this administration, this president, is focused on China. There's all this other ancillary stuff that's happening, but it's a trading relationship with China and the world that this president wants to get a new deal with. Everything else is secondary to that. So the pain and punishment, Mark Carney can have an awkward response, but he's going to have to negotiate. We're a much more important trading partner to Canada than they are to us, but it is in our interest to get this resolved. We need to get a roadmap for all these other countries so they can come in, we can have a new trading relationship with them, and they can join us in turning their attention to China. But it's going to be the China deal that will be the make or break thing for this administration, the lasting impact of this president's second term.
Yeah, I kind of assumes that President Trump's going to act rationally, though. I mean,
The China deal and Russia and Ukraine war is what will really define the Trump administration's second term. However, he's already in less than 100 days secured the border. Inflation is down. Prices are going down. Gas prices are going down. Eggs definitely are down. Interest rate going down. Come on, man. Y'all got to give this man his flowers. I get it. You don't like him. You don't like the way he talks. You don't like yeah, I get it. But business is business. Nobody cares about your feelings, okay? Your feelings do not pay your bills, all right? Your feelings don't really matter, okay? Really, in this world, your feeling, man, nobody cares about your feeling. Okay? It's about actions, results. Okay? It's not about I feel this way. Oh, I'm triggered by calling me she, they, them, he, her. Nobody cares about your feelings, okay? It's about results. And this man has proven that he is effective and is bringing results, is bringing his receipt every day, every time. Now, Russia wants to talk peace deal because why? Trump has always been on the game every time. You good? All right, yeah. So it's like when people talk about Trump this, Trump that, this man is working. This man is working, man. What did you get for the past 4 years with Joe Biden? That man was falling off stairs. That man was literally slipping on the world stage, couldn't get off the stage, falling while riding bikes, could not really speak to the American people. You saw the debate with Trump. He disgraced the United States. Now, I get it, he's older, but come on, man. Y'all want to say Biden was better than Trump? Trump has only spent 110 days, and he's already done way more than Biden has done for the past probably 50 years that he's been in government.
That's some great numbers. We can do more. I think we are going to do more. This first 100 days was a great start, but you're going to see that now that ICE...
So everybody's talking about Abrego Garcia and how he's allegedly MS-13 or allegedly a domestic violent person. But let's listen right here.
Is back to doing their mission. We are going to remove the worst from the worst. We are going to remove those immigration violators that have been ordered lawfully removed from the United States.
That's Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons telling Fox News there's still more work to be done when it comes to the administration's immigration crackdown, but he's happy with the progress made so far. And this could be why border crossings remain at an historic low in April. DHS sources telling Fox there were a little over 8,000 apprehensions last month. With me now, U.S. Customs and Border Protection Senior Advisor Ron Vitiello. Ron, welcome.
Thanks for inviting me, Mike.
So what do you think the keys are to reaching that historic low during the month of March?
Well, it's all of the things. You know, at the physical border, there are 10,000 troops assigned side by side with Border Patrol. The president declared an emergency at our border. He's named foreign terrorist organizations. The cartels have been named such. We've got unprecedented support from the interagency, including the Department of Justice. So prosecutions are off the charts compared to any other time that I've been around in dealing with border issues. And so all of those things, plus this idea that we're in the interior, Todd Lyons just on camera there saying that we're going to go after the worst of the worst. And so everybody knows now is not the time to come to the United States. And then if you're in the interior, you need to be looking over your shoulder if you're in the country illegally and you've committed serious crimes.
During the first 100 days, there was obviously an effort to quickly turn the page on what the Biden administration had been doing as it relates to the border and illegal immigration. Should we expect next steps over the next 100 days?
Yeah, we'll see more of the same, right? We're going to continue to give the tools to the men and women of the front line so that they can do their job well. We're going to continue to coordinate across the entire government to take the fight to these cartels, the foreign terrorist organizations, and then we're going to watch ICE scale up their activity in the interior, especially when the budget comes in, fill some of those gaps in. So you've got leadership in the White House with President Trump Secretary Kristi Noem at the Department of Homeland Security, again, ensuring that she understands what the front line needs and moving all the barriers out of the way for their success.
I also want to ask you about alleged MS-13 member Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador. The Tennessee Highway Patrol releasing body cam footage this week showing their 2022 encounter with the illegal immigrant, where state troopers suspect he was involved in human trafficking. This comes as some Democratic lawmakers are pushing for his return. What's your reaction?
Well, this proves that the guy's no hero. He's not just a Maryland man. He was ordered deported. He went to an appeals process in deportation hearings and was ordered again. And so there's more proof this week about his danger to the rest of our society, right? He was smuggling people from, in that case, Tennessee into Maryland. We know that he's a gang member of MS-13. That's why he's being held in El Salvador. And so this is just another example of where the left and these Democrats want to pretend that this is some innocent guy that got lifted off the streets, but that couldn't be farther from the case.
What do you suggest to politicians and pundits who argue that he was denied his rights?
Well, he was in 2 immigration hearings specifically centered on whether he could stay in the United States or not. He lost both of those contests with the government. He's now removed. That is the process. Politicians want to get out and say that this could happen to anyone. Well, it can't happen to anyone. It's going to happen to people who've been ordered deported by a judge, who are from another country, who are suspected criminals, in this case, now a terrorist under the president's designation. It's not going to happen. And he got his due process. And if it isn't due process to have immigration judges and immigration courts, I don't know what is. Those same Congress people who fund these activities in the government are saying it's not due process. It's as much their fault if it isn't that it's not. But it is process. It is the process that's there now. He was able to access it twice and has now been removed.
Ron, I anchored many a show during the Biden administration, Big Picture on Immigration, where we had a live rem of basically showing people crossing the border freely throughout those years. Obviously, the numbers were staggering. I wondered about what the morale was like for our men and women wearing the uniform, trying to basically enforce our laws. What's morale like now that there's been a huge shift in policy and practices as it relates to illegal immigration in this country?
It's off the charts. People are signing up in droves because they know that Border Patrol agents are going to do their job. And the agents that are on the line now are ecstatic that they have the tools that they need to be successful. Most agents want that. They want to be able to do what America is paying them for, which is to secure the border and make America safe again. So they're very happy to do it. Recruitment is on the rise. It's great to be on the line now because you can actually do your job.
Do you have a sense of the impact that it's having on the interior of the country as those numbers have dropped? And you've clearly sent a signal to illegals in this country that there's a new sheriff in town.
Right. Under the leadership of Kristi Noem, we've turned the CBP One app into CBP Home. It's an application where people can raise their hands and ask to be removed, like a self-deportation scenario. We're seeing that in real time, people signing up in the application. Hundreds have been removed under that condition as well. And then we see people fleeing into Canada, trying to illegally enter into Canada because they know they are going to suffer consequences in the United States. So people understand the scenario. And we know that the pipeline is nearly dried up. There are about 100 people, about almost 200 people at the border the last 24 hours, which versus last year, that would have been about 5,000 people. And so you showed the numbers for April. We're a third of where we were last year. And so it's going to get better. We're going to do more of the same. We're going to continue to press to make sure that people understand it is a crime to cross the border illegally and come to the United States without being invited. And so those people that are in the interior that have committed crimes and are also in the country illegally need to look over their shoulders. And people understand that the pipeline is drying up and they're not going to be successful at the border. If they continue to come across, there's a high likelihood they're going to be prosecuted, and they certainly will get sent back.
Ron Vitiello from Customs and Border Protection, thank you for your service to the country, and I thank you for your time today.
Hey, somebody just said that, well, if Trump is deporting people like this, somebody just deleted the person's comment. I'm a big boy. I could take it. Okay, so somebody said something that I wanted to read out to you guys. The person was like, if Trump is deporting people like this, that means he doesn't want tourists or people who want to do business with the United States to come to the United States. The fact is, everybody wants to come to the United States. Everybody wants to come to the United States, regardless of what you say. However you paint the picture, the United States is the greatest. The United States is the greatest country on earth. And if you don't think so, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But that's your perspective. In my opinion, okay, the United States is the greatest country on earth. And every human being on this earth wants to come to the United States, like it or not. Some people don't want to leave here, but they want to visit the United States once in a lifetime. And that's the facts. You can cry about it, but it's the facts. All right, Tom Homan, ladies and gentlemen.
On all of this, let's bring in the White House border czar, Tom Homan. Tom, good to have you back here. I wanted to ask you about this newly revealed petition for a protective order that was filed by Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife, Jennifer, back in 2020. It says in part the following, quote, I have photos of all the bruises he's left on my body. Me and my kids are afraid now. He's kicked me, pushed me, slapped me in the face, threatened me. I also have a recorded that he's told me, my ex-mother-in-law, that even if he kills me, no one can do anything to him. She alleges significant abuse, and this would seem to buttress the notion that this guy was not the husband and father of the year that Democrats are making him out to be.
Well, it supports what we've been saying from day one. We removed the public safety threat, gang member, designated terrorist, who's been ordered twice to be deported from the United States. He's in El Salvador. He's home. We did the right thing. But I hope that Democrats keep going down there. I hope they keep playing this game because they're showing the American people they're supporting a gang member, terrorist, public safety threat, white beater, rather than meeting with Angels moms and dads. I'm meeting with 50 Angel moms and dads this afternoon. Is there one Democrat representative going to be there? No. So they can keep playing that game. It's a loser for them. We'll keep doing what we're doing.
So this from the DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin on the new revelations concerning Abrego Garcia. She said, quote, we have now found 2 petitions for protection against him, in addition to the fact that he entered the country illegally and is a confirmed member of MS-13. Our country is safer with him gone. You mentioned the Democratic support of this guy. This is the hill that they have decided collectively to die on. Do you have any notion as to why they've chosen this person? Is there a bigger picture here that they haven't quite articulated yet?
I don't get it. I don't understand it. Why would you die in the hill for, again, a public safety threat, confirmed MS-13 gang member, designated terrorist, who's had due process? He's been ordered removed by 2 different immigration judges. I don't know. I don't understand it. It's probably for the same reason they said they had a secure border for 4 years. Probably for the same reason they said that the Congress needs to change the law to secure the border. You know, so it's a continuing misrepresentation to the American people. And this clearly shows the support of an MS-13 gang member terrorist white beater is clearly showing the American people what they're about. And I think that's why President Trump won a landslide victory.
Yeah, so the Supreme Court issued an order demanding that the White House help facilitate the return from El Salvador of Abrego Garcia. But here's what the New York Times said about El Salvador's reluctance to do that. Quote, the Trump administration recently sent a diplomatic note to officials in El Salvador to inquire about releasing a Salvadoran immigrant. The authoritarian government of Nayib Bukele, the leader of El Salvador, said no. The Bukele administration claimed the man should stay in El Salvador because he was a Salvadoran citizen. So the administration made inquiries of Bukele about Abrego Garcia to get him out. Bukele said no. Is that the end of it?
I mean, are we supposed to go into a sovereign nation and kidnap one of their nationals? I mean, Bukele's made it clear he's a citizen national El Salvador. And for all the leftists saying he was erroneously deported to El Salvador, they got to remember the withholding order was about fearing a gang in El Salvador, but that gang no longer exists. So the justification for that withholding order is gone. It's no longer exists. Plus, he's now designated a terrorist. And I watched some of the folks speaking before I came on, when they talk. Look, for all these congressmen to stand up and say we didn't give due process, let me remind them. They wrote the Alien Enemies Act. They enacted the Alien Enemies Act. Congress did. We're simply enforcing the law that's in federal statute that they created, that a president signed. We're not making this up. We're enforcing laws that Congress enacts, and that's exactly what we're going to continue to do.
So Abrego Garcia was a big portion of discussion in the ABC interview on Tuesday night between Terry Moran and President Trump. Let's listen to just a little bit of that here.
You could get him back. There's a phone on this desk. I could. You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
But the court has ordered you to facilitate that.
I'm not the one making this decision.
Court has ordered me?
The buck stops in his office.
No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
So I imagine that you could quiet a lot of this criticism by facilitating his return to the United States. But at the same time, you would probably open up another big can of worms that if Democrats felt like they could pressure you into bringing him back, then they could pressure you into doing a lot of other things. And Kaylee McGee White actually told me in a conversation we had offline that she believes that the bigger picture here for Democrats is if they could make it this difficult for you to deport somebody who's suspected to be a gang member, somebody who had orders of protection against him, then how are you ever going to deport non-criminal illegal aliens?
Look, we knew I knew the day one of the inauguration that we're going to be fighting the courts, we're going to be fighting the Democrats, we're going to be fighting the NGOs, the Oakland Board of Activists. We knew the fight was coming, and we're going to take that fight on. Well, you know one thing I know that all they don't, that all the other ones, the ones that are yelling about this, I've seen in 40 years what TDA and MS-13 are capable of. I've seen the horrific things they have done, not only to American citizens, but aliens that live here. I've seen their capability. They are animals, and I can't even compare it to animals. Animals kill to survive. MS-13 and TDA kill for pleasure. And to put fear in not only the American community, they put fear in the immigrant community. That's who they attack the most, the migrant community. So, you know what? I stand with President Trump. This man's home. He's where he should be.
Tom, good to see you back in the program. Thanks so much for taking time.
Man, I don't care what nobody say, man. I support Tom Homan. I voted for Trump, and that's just the facts. These guys are working hard to fulfill the promise they made to the United States. The people who voted for Trump, they know that this is necessary. And it is what it is.
3 Virginia correction officers are in the hospital after what officials say was a coordinated stabbing by inmates connected to MS-13.
This comes as Democrats try to distance themselves from deported MS-13 suspect Kilmar Abrego Garcia after new audio from his wife detailing domestic violence allegations surfaces.
We're not vouching for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We are vouching for his constitutional rights.
I think our advocacy here has a little bit less to do with him individually and more the process and the fact, the lack of due process that this administration continues to act with.
So let's bring in Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Madam Secretary, so great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Charlie.
It's really kind of amazing when you step back and you look at, there was a time when this was like an actual controversial issue. I think it's now turned into like an 80-20 issue. But the idea that Democrats are now going out of their way to die on a hill defending a guy like this Garcia character, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really is. The mainstream media, these congressmen, these senators, the Democrat Party wrapping their arms around a known human smuggler, a wife beater, a violent criminal that was finally held accountable for his actions. The fact that they went to the mat for this guy just shows exactly who they are, that they are people who don't put America first. They don't care about our citizens and protecting our communities. So I'm glad that the onion's been peeled back and that their true motivations have been revealed. And this is just one of the cases that we're getting off the streets. You know, since President Trump has been in office, we have removed thousands and thousands of violent criminals, and people are safer today.
So obviously, Democrats have come a long way from the time when they lectured all of us about believing all women. They seem to not be so interested in his wife's testimony, her statements about what he did to her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And repeatedly and over again. And the other people who witnessed it, those other people who witnessed these beatings and these abuses, too. And you listen to the emotion in her voice and the trauma. And then they backed up this guy and they fought for him. And they flew to El Salvador to stand with him and say, this is the kind of guy I want to be friends with and advocate for and throw our federal laws and throw the United States of America under the bus for. Boy, I tell you what, this is a new low for Senator Van Hollen, but for the Democratic Party and for the mainstream media that they perpetuated this. They started all of this and gave it a platform to gain momentum.
Yeah. For those who haven't heard that, I think it's important for people to listen because it's poignant. Listen.
He grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. And then the neighbor, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to react. I have pictures of the evidence, all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me.
You know, Christy, my husband was a prosecutor.
Oh my God. That is his wife's voice. We're going to go back again. Man, I don't mean to, what the Bible says. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. Okay, I'm not here to put hands under their relationship. Okay, I'm just here to say what's going on. This is his wife's voice telling you he's been doing what he's been doing, which is domestic violence, ladies and gentlemen.
He slapped me, and then the neighbor, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to react. I have pictures of the evidence, all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me around 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and hit me.
You know, Christy, my husband was a prosecutor at one
my boy
time.
just waking up to hate his wife. God,
who would beat up by their husbands, who would give statements like this, and then go into court and defend, end up defending the person who beat them up. Feels like that's where the Democrats are at right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why they're going to lose 2026
what she's saying
midterms.
today is she still scared? Many people and victims I've worked with over the years, they say one thing in public because they have to survive or to protect their children. So I wouldn't say that, what she's saying today is how she really feels. I think she could be in fear as well, and that's what happens. That's why one of the reasons that we opened the Voices office again over here in Homeland Security. The Voices office was established under the first Trump administration to be an advocate and a resource for people who were victims of alien crime, illegal aliens. And you know what? Biden closed it down. I think Elon talked last night on this network about cover-ups. This was one of the biggest cover-ups of illegal immigrant crime because Biden shut down this office so that these victims had nowhere to go to get help. It couldn't be documented. It couldn't be tracked. The data couldn't go back and look at it to see how many victims there truly were. We reopened it again so that people like the Angel Moms and other victims have a resource to track where these court hearings are, when these illegals are in the country, when they're going to be released, and how they're held accountable. So you talk about cover-ups that Joe Biden facilitated. This one endangered Americans, and we're so thankful President Trump is back and taking care of the victims of these terrible crimes.
Well, here's another cover-up, Secretary. So we've been following very closely here on Fox and Fox Noticias the 300,000 children that went missing under Joe Biden's watch. You remember all the people crying about kids in cages, who also voted against getting DNA tests for these children to find out who are the adults who claim to be their aunts or uncles or parents. This past week in one of the cabinet meetings, RFK said this, and I thought it was one of the most remarkable moments of that cabinet meeting. Listen.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
So our government was complicit in child labor, child sex trafficking. They knew what they were doing. They knew what was happening here, and they did it anyway. The Secretary of HHS now saying, I've shut this down. But what is Homeland Security or any other parts of the government doing to find these children who Donald Trump told me in Bedminster last summer he promised to do everything he could to locate them?
Absolutely. Yeah, Bobby's absolutely right. He's correct. They were facilitating putting children in unsafe homes and people who were trafficking them. The Biden administration went out there and didn't even vet these sponsors many times. And many children would go through a sponsor's home, and it could be someone who was using them to profit off of them, victimizing them over and over again. So the fact that he stopped that is absolutely wonderful. And we have, in Homeland Security and with their partnership as well, reunited over 5,000 children already with their appropriate family members and people who love them and will care for them. We're going to continue to work on that and continue to bring these children back home and then get them healing from what they've been through and the trauma that they've had. The Democratic Party facilitated and funded separating children from their families and victimizing them and trafficking them, and that has stopped under President Trump, and we're so grateful for his leadership.
So incredible.
Yes, indeed. Secretary Noem, real quick, I want to get your thoughts on Real ID. Deadline approaching this week on the 7th.
It is.
What's your information, your pitch to the viewers out there? There are some who are concerned about this. What do you want them to know?
Well, I want them to know it's a law that was passed 20 years ago that the Biden administration never implemented, and the May 7th is the date that was set by Congress. It has to be implemented by. 81% of travelers are already compliant with Real ID. And what they need to do is look at their license and see if it has a little star in the right-hand corner. If it does, they have a Real ID compliant passport. Bring a passport if you don't have that. But if you don't...
I'm about to check my own Real ID. Let me check my wallet. So here is what a Real ID looks like. Wait, let me see. You guys could see. So mine has a star here. Wait, can you guys see this? Mine has a star here. So, yeah.
I have a Real ID, then you may need to go through additional vetting or put in a different line, get a warning, just because we know that this is federal law and it allows us to know who's on our federally regulated aircrafts, and it's a safety concern. And also for me, there's 19 states right now that issue driver's licenses to illegal aliens. If we make sure that they're Real ID compliant, it helps us get to election integrity as well. If we know that citizens and people that are here with legal status are the ones getting driver's licenses and using those IDs. Oftentimes those are the same IDs that they have to use when they show up to vote as well. So it's a safety law that was put in place many years ago. We want everybody to be aware that when they get to the airport to have that Real ID ready to go. But the good thing is 81% of Americans already have one. So we don't expect there to be inconveniences or waits at all. We're prepared for May 7th to get here.
Look for
no dodge and doge. No dodge and doge, ladies and gentlemen.
We begin with this Fox News alert. Elon Musk and his Doge team members looked back at all they have accomplished over the first 100 days of President Trump's second term. It's been a big week. Time to look at Doge. They sat down with Fox for an interview that pulled back the curtain on what American tax dollars actually have been paying for. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Senior advisor to the president, Elon Musk, is scaling back his schedule now with the Department of Government Efficiency. However, he says Doge is crucial.
Is Doge just getting started? This is a long-term enterprise.
It's a long-term enterprise because if we take our eye off the ball, the waste and fraud will come roaring back.
They can Doge when Democrats get back in power.
We're trying to have it be such that the funding is removed, so the grants are gone. So there's a lot of work required to restart the waste and fraud.
The DOJ team detailed a few eye-popping examples of waste and abuse that they have uncovered.
They found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, et cetera.
They get $50 million a year, congressional money, to give grants. These are things like alpaca farming in Peru. We actually went into the agency and found that they had loaded guns inside of their headquarters, spending money on things like private jets. And they even had a $130,000 contract with a former member of the Taliban.
Those examples and many, many, many more add up to a big number. DOJ claims it already has saved an estimated $160 billion. That's nearly $1,000 per every U.S. taxpayer. And the job is far from over. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson is at the White House. A lot of shock here, like just how much money was going out the door. Rich.
Yeah, and this is a time, Harris, where Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency are touting and defending their work in the first 100 days of the Trump administration. The Department of Government Efficiency has cut a number of government employees, contracts, workers, even entire departments, and tens of billions of dollars of what staffers have called wasteful spending.
Unfortunately, like the 100th time you've heard it, it's hard not to get a little numb. Yeah. But and by the 200th time, you're like, well, okay, it's just another day at the office.
We checked, is the Small Business Administration giving loans to dead people over the age of 120? The answer was yes, and it was around $330 million in total.
DOJ is also highlighting eliminating funding for improving the marketability of peas in Guatemala. Musk says finding out where federal money ends up is a complicated task.
Exactly. Contractor, subcontractor, it's like peeling an onion. And then maybe, and sometimes it's zero. Just flat, you get to the bottom of the onion, there's nothing there.
Musk had originally targeted $2 trillion in savings. Now that he's established DOJ, he says he's going to spend more time at Tesla, where sales and company stock prices are down. His special government employee status is scheduled to end May 30th. Musk's opponents accused DOJ of overinflating savings and cutting vital government services, medical research and aid. Democrats say government spending is actually up this year and that Musk has failed to deliver significant savings from a bloated Pentagon budget.
We heard from Elon Musk that $20 to $30 billion just disappear in the Pentagon. We heard from Elon Musk that cost-plus contracting is a gravy train. We heard from Elon Musk that he was going to cut the defense budget. And what happened? We're adding $150 billion to the defense budget.
The latest Fox News poll says 39% of registered voters approve of DOJ, 56% do not. Several federal judges have reversed some of these DOJ cuts as these cases are continuing to work their way through the federal court system. Harris?
Rich, thank you. Mary Catherine Ham, Fox News contributor, is with me now to give me her first reaction to all of this. A lot of information. I mean, just the thought of Democrats one day coming and trying to flip the switch, as Jesse was talking about, is actually pretty frightening.
Yeah, and first of all, I love that Elon and the guys that he's working with do these sit-downs. I think they should do more of them because part of this is an education program for the American taxpayer about just how bad things are inside the federal government. Every single part of every single budget is bloated. And I would note for the congressman who was saying defense is not cut, defense spending is actually in the Constitution, so that's a helpful point in its favor. The rest of this stuff, going to Caesar's Palace on taxpayer dime or giving money to your friends' nonprofits that maybe don't even exist and are basically shell companies, those are disrespectful to American taxpayers. And there is an argument that I understand that is like, we're not really dealing with spending, we're not really dealing with entitlements. I want to deal with those things. However, this is like JV level, entry level cutting. It's so ridiculous. It's so silly. It's so dispensable that we should dispense with it. And I love that they are going after these things because tell it to American taxpayers who have never seen $10,000, $100,000 in one place. Tell them that $160 billion is chump change, right? It's not chump change. It's their money, and it is the duty of the government to spend it wisely and not take it from them and give it to other people for nonsense.
I love what you're saying. Had there been contemporaneous accountability, maybe none of this would be happening because the American people would not have put up with this had they known. Well, those on the left and Democratic lawmakers have been going after Doge's waste-cutting efforts since day one. Here's a look.
Unelected shadow government is conducting a hostile takeover of the federal government.
This smash and grab by Elon Musk is going to stop.
This is the most corrupt bargain we've ever seen in American history.
Fox's own Jason Chaffetz, former Utah congressman, with his recent op-ed, Democrats have made a fatal error opposing Doge. He argues they appear to be for the fraud and waste, and without a viable, reasonable, common sense alternative, their attacks fall on deaf ears and leave most to wonder, what do Democrats really stand for? Well, I think everybody's wondering that now. Mary Catherine?
Yeah, well, let me get this straight. It's a hostile takeover by the duly elected president who put a special government employee, of which Biden had plenty, in charge of the United States Digital Service, which they renamed Doge, but was an Obama-era creation to get, wait for it, smart technologists to come in from the private sector to add efficiency and knowledge to government, which is what they're doing. So they make up this idea that this is illegitimate in some way, but they've done that the entire time, the entire Trump era, right? It's not illegitimate. It's put in under this very specific system, and they are doing things that honor the taxpayers' dollars instead of disregarding them. And by the way, when you want to talk about like whether there is fraud going on, let's talk about just a tiny part of COVID spending. The biggest COVID fraud in the United States happened in Minnesota under Tim Walz's leadership. It was $250 million stolen from a children's food program. Okay, this stuff happens all the time, and it should be punished, and people should be held accountable for it.
Well, there are eyes on it now. It kind of makes you wonder, Mary Catherine, how Democrats are picking what they'll get behind. This is another example of that. There are now more horrific abuse accusations coming out about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He is the illegal immigrant and alleged MS-13 gang member who President Trump deported to El Salvador in March. Despite this, some Democrats are still standing behind him. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen, who visited Garcia in prison. Remember that? That was like a big photo op. Well, now he says this.
In his first 100 days, Donald Trump is shredding the Constitution of the United States. He's violated these rights in many instances, including the illegal abduction and deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Okay, let's just stack up the facts before we go on. Audio from 2020 was obtained by USA Today. Abrego Garcia's wife pleaded with a judge for protection from her own husband. A warning, the audio is difficult for some younger viewers especially to hear. Watch and listen.
He grabbed me from my hair and then he slapped me. I have pictures of the evidence, like all the bruises, because even on Wednesday, he hit me like around like 3 in the morning. He would just wake up and like hit me. He slapped me 3 times. And then last week I did call the police. My sister called the police because he hit me in front of my sister.
His wife responded to the audio with the statement, "My husband was traumatized from the time he spent in ICE detention, and we were in the throes of COVID. Like many couples, we were caring for our children with barely enough to get by. All of those factors contributed to the actions which caused me to seek the protective order." We reached out to lawmakers that went to, or who went to El Salvador for their reaction to the audio. No responses on that yet. However, Van Hollen's team referred us back to the press conference from yesterday. Highway Patrol also released this 2022 body cam footage of an encounter with Abrego Garcia. Watch this.
How are you? Good, and you? All right. Everything good? You got a bunch of people here, don't you? It's 1 for seat. Yes. Go back to work. I ain't never seen a Suburban with 4 rows of seats.
You know what you got here, right?
No.
He's hauling these people for money. They don't have any luggage in there, right? And if you get them out, they're gonna have a tube of toothpaste and they're gonna have toothbrushes in their pockets. I guarantee it.
He's got $1,400 cash in his pocket in an envelope.
Troopers ultimately cited Abrego Garcia for driving with an expired license and let him go. The FBI later ordered that case to be dropped. Look, Mary Catherine, there is a long history now with just this one man, and it seems to get longer every day. Again, this is an issue again. Democrats jumped in early to defend him. Your thoughts?
Yes. Well, yes, when you look at this, the question becomes, for whom do Democrats wish to stand? And for whom do they put all their energy into standing and fighting, right? And the answer is, Abrego Garcia became the poster child for them. And it probably was a strategic error. Here, I will say this. The administration says it messed up by sending him to El Salvador versus another country. They should rectify that mistake and deport him elsewhere because he is eminently deportable, as illustrated by the fact that it is not in dispute that he was here illegally for 11 years and that he has all these things on his record, including being adjudicated by an immigration judge at one point as MS-13. Like, American voters look at these guys and they go, there's Americans captive all over the world who you're not saying anything about, including Idan Alexander, who's still in Gaza. They say nothing about these folks. They send the message that they care more about illegal immigrants and the process due to them than they do to Americans in the system and the process due to them. By the way, the victims sitting in the Wisconsin court when the Milwaukee judge decided to escort their alleged attacker out of the courtroom, fighting for him, not for the Americans who had been victimized by him. This is the message that they continue to send. Not that they're standing up for process, but that they're standing up for these folks.
Look, Abrego Garcia went to El Salvador per our country. He was on a final deportation order. They sent him to his home country. Right. And I don't know if you'll remember this, but he fought going there because he said a rival gang would come after him. Yes. Yet Dems are still trying to chase the narrative that he was never even considered to be in a gang. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. They'll have to deport him here, then deport him away to a different country. But he doesn't belong in the United States either way.
I agree.
All right.
I agree. And that's been fairly obvious from the day one.
Thank you so very much. Good to have you in focus.
Thank you.
We're getting an exclusive look inside the first 100 days of Doge. Jesse Waters sat down with Elon Musk and his team of engineers to discuss everything they've uncovered so far. And it turns out they say millions of taxpayer dollars have gone to dead people.
Is the Small Business Administration giving loans to dead people, people over the age of 120? The answer was yes, and it was around $330 million in total. So
people with a birthday that could not possibly be real. Yeah. Meaning they're over 100, they're 115 years old or older. The oldest living American is 114. So it's safe to say if anybody is in the system as 115 years or older, that is fake.
So just by sharing a database and looking at Social Security numbers that showed that at the time of the loan, they had listed as over 115 years old, or actually under 11. We didn't even check for under 18.
Babies and dead
under 11 years old. That's pretty clear.
Babies
right?
and dead people were getting loans.
And it gets worse. They say government officials were partying on your dime.
There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of
That
Education.
right there is just wow.
And there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, et cetera. And so the one change that Doge made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so, nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. Anything.
Anything.
Anything. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore. Huh, that's interesting.
They were renting Caesar's Palace.
Yes, they were like basically partying on the taxpayer money.
Stadiums.
Yes.
Leasing stadiums.
Leasing stadiums.
For what?
For parties, basically.
For parties?
Yes.
That's a big party.
Tommy, I love Jesse's reaction. Renting stadiums for parties. This blows my mind. This isn't transgender rats on treadmills. This is Caesar's Palace.
What I love is that now that there's a little tiny bit of accountability, all of a sudden nobody wants to upload any receipt. So the Democrat narrative on this, again, has been wrong. But it's been, oh, well, it wasn't $2 trillion, so who cares? Well, when you look at the egregious spending, if we're able to cut out the egregious stuff and it adds up to whatever it ended up being, 150 million, billion, that's a great savings. And most people are happy to see it, right? So the fact that Democrats poo-poo this, it reminds me of Nancy Pelosi talking about the tax cuts as just crumbs. It means something to the American people that we're not renting out stadiums for certain government employees to have a fun time.
You know, Sandra, I want to play this moment. This is about deleting records. And you think, you know, in government, you have to keep your records. Certainly shouldn't be deleting accounting information. But Elon Musk and the team found this. Listen.
Just a few hours after we got into their headquarters, we found that their chief accountant had actually deleted over 1 terabyte of accounting records from several years. So you'd have to ask the question, well, why would somebody do that? And the Doge team, fortunately, was able to recover that data with the help of a few great employees at the Institute of Peace. And I think the most troubling thing was they received $55 million a year from Congress, and any money that went unspent, instead of returning that to Congress, they would sweep it into a private bank account, which had no congressional oversight. And that's what they would use to fund things like events at their headquarters and the private jets.
You almost feel like you're watching a very entertaining sitcom, but this is real life. And I think Jesse Waters was enjoying himself very much.
Yes.
I mean, what an incredible revelation and what an eye-opening look at this. And to have a seat at the table and to have a camera in the room just continues to speak to the transparency that this administration is providing. It wasn't just Caesar's Palace and the big party. It was private jets. Congressionally approved funds were used for a $130,000 contract with a former member of the Taliban they dug up. That's all been recommended to the Justice Department. So Elon Musk talked about on his sort of long goodbye here that this is a long-term enterprise, and they've got to stay at this because things can easily fall back into old ways. But, you know, we've talked a lot about the resistance to this. A lot of these agencies are so happy with the change. I mean, it was archaic. I think Elon Musk said it's prehistoric, like dinosaurs would think this is kind of old, talking about the archaic filing systems at the federal employees retirement system. So there is a lot of welcome change that is happening as well, by the way.
You know, Jesse had a lot of fun there, too.
Yeah.
He found a young man who goes by the name of Big Balls.
Oh, boy.
This cracks me up, you guys.
Who's Big Balls?
Big balls, yeah.
That should be obvious.
Why do they call you Big Balls?
I just said it as my LinkedIn username.
Because I got big balls.
Well, people on LinkedIn take themselves like super seriously, and they're pretty adverse to risk. And I was like, well, I want to be neither of those things. So I said it, and honestly, I didn't even think anyone would notice.
The only man on the couch.
I didn't have analyzing big balls on my bingo card today, but here we are.
Here we are.
I'll be real quick. More of this from the Doge team, not just Elon Musk, but the whole team, because when he leaves, you see that they are in very capable hands. 3/4 of Americans agree with the Doge mission because who's for waste, fraud, and corruption? Oh, right, Democrats and some allies in the media. So again, this is an issue hammered home. When Elon's gone, the mission will continue.
Emily with the cleanup at bat.
Remember how the left painted these engineers as inexperienced children, inexperienced engineers, right? We saw there without notes as they articulated the phenomenal impact that they've had from memory, and also things like, you know, the person from the Institute of Peace that helped stop that 1 terabyte of flooding. I mean, the reality is that tiny changes and a stop to the culture of blatant thievery has made an indelible impact. But the work is not yet over. It requires the continuing of the baton. And by the way, I assure you guys, when I was a federal attorney, I did not go to any stadium party. I mean, I was shopping at Target. I still do, and staying at Best Western.
And J. Crew.
And no parties at Caesars for Emily Campagna.
I wish.
All right.
We want to bring in Russell Vogt, director of the Office of Management and Budget, who is reportedly, quote, widely perceived to be preparing to pick up where Musk leaves off. Russ Vogt, welcome. Thank you very much. It's good to have you here. So let me just ask you that for starters, because I think there is a feeling that with Elon Musk leaving this position, at least on a daily basis, the ball is going to get dropped. And then the signal to all these agencies is sort of, hey, back to business as usual.
Well, I haven't come to the realization or the acceptance that Elon is leaving. It's been a great partnership, and we hope it continues as long as he's able to do it amongst his other responsibilities. And it's been a historic and I think revolutionary look at what is occurring at these agencies. And I love the interview last night. And we're trying to make these cuts permanent. We're trying to send them up to Congress. proposed the lowest non-defense level since 2017. If you adjust it for inflation, it's the lowest since 2000 because we want to bank these $163 billion in cuts to the bureaucracy that has been woke and weaponized and wasteful. And the American people know it's not affordable. What they just are maddened by the fact that it's been used to divide them and been weaponized against them. And so that's what we're trying to fix. At the same time, we're going to fund all the president's priorities and get him to $1 trillion national defense figure. And so we're going to have a good reception on Congress, and we've already begun that outreach.
Well, I think the American people want to know that someone is going to pick this ball up and is going to hang on to it like a dog with a stake in their teeth that they're not going to let go of. And Bloomberg wrote this: vote is widely perceived as picking up wherever Musk leaves off. He has the institutional knowledge and perhaps the patience to make Doge cuts stick and is waiting in the wings. Is that accurate? Are you going to be that person?
Nobody picks up for Elon Musk. I'm happy doing the job that I've been doing. And the relationship has been one of, we want to go as fast as we can to work with Doge as they're finding savings wherever they possibly can. And then OMB comes along and figures out how to make them permanent. That's going to continue, and we will work with whoever is at Doge to be able to make sure that this isn't just something that falls by the wayside. I promise you the president is deeply committed to the work of government efficiency.
It is so outrageous when you listen to these examples. And if 2/3 of them, are right on the money, it is, I think, appalling to Americans who work hard and they don't want their money going down the drain for these people to sort of fly, private planes. What is he talking about when he says they rented out stadiums and Caesar's Palace? What agency was that? Who did that?
Well, I have to look on that one, but we've seen rampant waste everywhere. And it's both in our foreign policy, it's, the housing department making the city of Los Angeles do an equity audit. It's a preschool program for curricula. It's literally designed for nothing other than to put CRT curricula in preschools for 4-year-olds. We see that everywhere. And it's not just, is it wasteful, is it maddening, it's divisive, and we're putting an end to it. Promises made, promises kept.
Yeah, what about criminal? Is it criminal?
And I think you would hear that fraudulent, right? I mean, it
Yes.
is insane, and that's the kind of thing the American people would rather be burned in the parking lot than to go to the
So what happens? I mean, is someone going to go to jail? Because it really, I think that the outrage is palpable on this. The waste is disgusting. The idea that you can, charge things and move money into another bank from these funds that are taxpayer. Is it your sense that DOJ is going to actually follow through on some of these and prosecute in some of these cases?
I do. The president's been very clear in working with our wonderful Attorney General Pam Bondi to make sure that wherever we could find fraud, that those are prosecuted, and she's been very clear on that.
So we're looking on the screen, improper payments for fiscal year 2024. It adds up to about $160 billion right there. I do want to ask you about the president's budget, which just dropped, and there's a bit of pushback to it. It has cuts of 22.6%, $163 billion, another familiar number found here. But some are not happy with what they're seeing in this proposal, which is no surprise. I guess usually when the president drops their budget, you're going to get a lot of pushback. But some of this is coming from Mitch McConnell and Roger Wicker in the Senate. Here's a quote. "It's peculiar how much time the president's advisors spend talking about restoring peace through strength, given how apparently unwilling they are to invest accordingly in the national defense." What do you say to that, Mr. Vogt?
Yeah, it's an inaccurate charge. We provide $1 trillion in national defense spending, 13% increase. We do it in two components. We use discretionary spending, and then we put in a historic paradigm all of our increases on defense and homeland security. We use it in reconciliation so that we only need to use Republican votes. We don't want Democrats to have the filibuster as a veto to then hijack the appropriations process and say no to the homeland security spending, and then say that every dollar of defense has to lead to another dollar in non-defense spending. So that has been Washington, D.C. broken. We are changing that. And right now, even before any discretionary appropriations bill is done, you're going to see $150 billion passed in the House and the Senate. That is real money. It's going to real capabilities, and it will lead to all of the increases to get us to $1 trillion bill. And so I love Chairman Wicker. We're going to be working with this team to continue to explain what we believe is a historic strategy to secure the actual increases as opposed to letting the initiative be to Democrats in Congress.
I got to ask you one more question before I let you go, and it's this. A lot of the agencies that we're hearing about around that table last night are, smaller agencies that most people have never heard of. When you look at the waste in Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, again, it's like $150 billion in these improper payments. So when are you going to go after waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security?
Well, look, I think what DOGE is doing is, in fact, real time changing processes to make sure that the improper payments goes away. We don't have to wait on Congress to do that. We also have a reconciliation bill in which we're going to make sure that we can't have illegal immigrants on the Medicaid program, and we don't have people on that where states need new tools for eligibility requirements. And so there is a lot of work that can be done on the mandatory side of the House. This is just for the discretionary. We wanted to get it up to Congress to start the appropriations process and to inform those that are working on the reconciliation bill. Much more detail is to come when it comes to the other programs that make up the entirety of our federal spending.
Well, thank you. We appreciate what you're doing, and we thank you for your time today, Russell Vought, OMB. It does seem that there is a DOJ aspect of this as well, if people are stealing from the American people when they carry out these government jobs. So hopefully we'll talk to Pam Bondi next about that. Thank you very much. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, Jesse, what your overall impression.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is currently 3:57 p.m. and today's date is the 3rd of May, 2025. How is your day going? Okay, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, this is what we do. We talk about what's going on in the United States. We listen to mostly the left and the right, and sometimes the middle ground, just so we can know, what different perspective everybody has. And of course, you have the chat section where you can say your perspective, free speech. Of course, be respectful. Okay, be respectful. That's all we ask. But it's free speech. Say what you want. And also, with that being said, we have memberships. It is $4.99. Join the memberships and double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the show. But before we keep the show rolling, what did Joe Biden do in his fourth term as president and Kamala Harris as vice president that you really admire, that you really say, you know what, these policies are for Americans first? That's what I'm asking. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, what did they do for the 4 years presidential term and vice presidential term that they had? What did they do for you, your family, for the United States, for the border, for foreign policy, for the economy, for inflation, that truly made you think, I truly want Kamala Harris to be the first woman president of the United States? And most people forget she was the first woman vice president of the United States. It's never happened before. And most people just forget. She did nothing, in my opinion. This is my opinion. You have your opinion, put it in the chat. But there's nothing she did that was remarkable for people to even, for the girls, because she was saying, well, this is for the female kids to get inspired. But you had your 4 years to be the vice president of the United States and did nothing remarkable for our kids, for the female kids. You're always talking about the girls, for them to get inspired. You did nothing remarkable. She was named the border czar. And what happened? She only went to the border twice. How can you be the border czar and go to the border twice? And the aspect of the border that you visited wasn't even the dangerous part. Tom Homan, before he was even fully said, you know what, you're the border czar, this man been going to the border. So, say what you want. You don't have to agree with Trump, but what did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do? For right now, what has Trump done for the past 100 days? This man has secured the border. Trillions of dollars are coming into the United States. NVIDIA, Apple, everybody's bringing their manufacturing here. And the ones who can't come here, they're going to India, our ally, okay? And Trump is still going to tariff India as well. But the fact is, manufacturing is coming back to the United States. The border locked and ready. The economy is coming back. Inflation is now lower. Interest rate is lower. I mean, you could never say interest rate isn't lower. Inflation isn't lower. Gas prices are also lower. So Russia, Ukraine, that did not start under Trump. Trump is now trying to end the war. Iran was broke for sure under Trump, but now guess what? They're talking about nuclear weapons. And Trump, as usual, trying to de-escalate the situation. As usual, this guy is always trying to de-escalate the situation, but y'all ain't have no chill pill. Y'all gonna talk about this guy is Hitler, he's the devil. Joe Biden was falling off stairs. Joe Biden was falling off stages. Joe Biden was walking into the Amazon rainforest. This man never made any coherent sentence. He never answered questions. Y'all, the only question he answered was, what was your favorite ice cream? Chocolate chips. But when they interviewed Trump, it's over.
Was of this group, because when Brett spoke to some of the members, they were like a lot of CEOs, a lot of people with a lot of experience. This was like that young crowd that we heard a lot about, at least some of them were.
Someone said, what was it like being the dumbest person in the room? And I said, I'm used to it. So the one kid had dropped out of Harvard to go do this. Another kid was 21 years old. I think Big Balls is maybe 23. And the minute they open their mouth, they're so articulate and they're so serious and they're so competent. One of the guys at the end of the interview said, you know, people sometimes, these bureaucrats, that come up to us and thank us. You know, because you get this story in the press where these guys are mercenaries and they're coming in and they're just axing people and it's a big standoff. No, these people are collaborating with the Doge team to make the government better. And that was something I don't think anybody had really known before because of the way the media describes it. One story kind of got me. There's this Institute of Peace, and they say they name things because who would ever want to kill the Institute of Peace? Exactly. They walk in the door and there's a armory. There's fully loaded weapons being stored in the Institute of Peace. They're sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Taliban, and they start asking questions. And then these guys start destroying evidence. They just start erasing files, destroying pieces of paper. It's eye-opening. It really is.
I mean, this is what I can't get over, Harold. What he's describing is crime. I mean, these are crimes. This is taking money and it disappears. That's called stealing. Layers of corruption, layers of stealing that he described. I mean, what do you think should happen to the people that allowed this to happen? Should people go to jail?
It'd probably be a lot of Democrats and Republicans going to jail. This is something that's gone on for way too long. Look, I am a huge supporter of this effort. This is not the first time we've had efforts like this, but this is an effort that has gotten a lot more attention. And you have the richest man in the world who has pioneered and has come up with some of the great innovations and technologies that the country benefits from over the last 10 years. Two, I hope even with his absence, I hope they continue down the road of finding, you have a $4 billion thing at the one that they had at the Department of Education, and there are no receipts for what was drawn down on. All of it may have been legitimate, but you can't do that in the real world. I do ask everyone to take some caution in terms of our glee for just one thing. As I watched you last night, and you were great, by the way, listening to all of them, letting everybody sort of share their story and share the reasons why they're doing this. I'm reminded that government, having worked there, government is not a startup. Government's not a business. We want it to operate as much as it possibly can as a business. I view government as a great nonprofit trying to be a business, and you always have to make sure that they're not spending more, that they're not wasting it, and people are not stealing it. I look at my church, and we probably do things a little inefficiently in time. We maybe have too many food drives. We may have too much time where we have hotlines for people to call, and we may have too many times where we have domestic violence counseling for people. I bet if you have one of these really, really smart guys, and I was a little disturbed there were only men in the room, but if you have one of these smart guys come and say, hey, maybe you guys should only have one food delivery during the day. We'd probably save money. Or maybe you should only have one time where people can come and ask about problems they're having at home. There's some entities in some parts of our society that aren't going to operate like an innovation center in Silicon Valley, or for that matter, Austin, Texas, or wherever. But this overall exercise is a very good exercise, because if those at the Department of Education, or for that matter, any of these agencies, have to answer these tough questions about where the money's being spent, that's a good thing for all of us.
$4 billion, Judge, for the Department of Education, no receipts. That money was supposed to go to catching up kids during COVID. I remember President Biden in that classroom, and the little girl was like, I just, fall asleep, or I go get something to eat. The money it disappeared, and there's no return on it. It's not an extra food drive. It's gone.
Yeah, well, it's gone because people stole. Let's not kid each other. They may claim, for example, as with USAID, that it went for an opera in Ecuador. But the issue is, was there ever an opera in Ecuador?
That's what he's saying. There was no sex change in Guatemala.
So the money goes to this person, and it subcontracts to that person, maybe an LLC here, and it never gets to the alleged goal. And then the question is, was there a kickback? Did everybody spend the money? And let me tell you, I worked in government for 32 years. Nobody does anything without a receipt, Harold. You don't take money and just spend it willy-nilly. And by the way, people who go to work for government, people who work in civil service, are unaccustomed to first-class events. When you work for government, you're basically, in the back of the bus, in the back of the plane. These people are renting out Caesar's Palace, spending a fortune on first-class conferences where they don't have conferences. And while American taxpayers are cutting their budgets to make sure they can pay taxes, these people are spending the money with absolutely no consequences. Now, the Democrats have been beside themselves with DOJ. How dare you? How could you? This is outrageous, and all this other nonsense. I'm not sure that now that Congress is taking over, that we can even trust Congress, because Congress has had the ability to oversee this for the last 30, 40, 50 years, and they've done nothing because one hand washes the other. And now what we've got to try to figure out is whether or not these criminal referrals, and there have been criminal referrals to the Department of Justice, will be prosecuted. And I think there will be a great many of them.
I think that's what you need, Greg. I mean, somebody has to go to jail for stealing money from the American taxpayer, or else it's just going to go on and on and on and on.
There's nothing worse than too many food drives. But you know what? Let's go back to the A block. This is the hill you die on. The debt's $36 trillion. It's predicted to default in, a decade at this rate of spending. So it could completely destroy the economy, which will destroy the country. This is where you should put your energy. Adults put their energy in this. The Dems, they fly to El Salvador on your dime to defend a thug. That's the hill they choose versus this hill. And they choose these hills despite knowing what we all know. The numbers are there. We're screwed unless DOJ does its job. And yet, what do? They falsely claim that DOJ is cutting Social Security and Medicaid. Why would you say that? Why would you say that when you know that if DOJ doesn't do this, we're all screwed? Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, we're all screwed. The lower third that was up there said this is a long-term thing. This is why polling is garbage. With Trump, the reason why we stick with Trump is because we're in it for the long term, not the short. Saving the economy, not saving one illegal in El Salvador for the short-term dopamine hit. These polling numbers at the moment, it's like asking a guy how he feels while he's moving a sofa, and not afterward when he's sitting on the sofa having a beer and watching the Five. Pollsters and Democrats don't get it. We accept reality. We get the tough stuff over first. DOJ, tariffs, deportation. Yeah, it hurts and it sucks, but the future's going to be great. Pollsters and Democrats do not think about the future. It's now that it's all about now, me, me, me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the commitment that the president has made, and I think he tries to get a lot of the pain up front before the midterm cycle, so that he will have some results to look at that point, and that's when the American people should judge. But
how long should we be ready for the pain? I just want to.
Well, it's only been 4 weeks.
Look at the stock market, Harold.
Yeah, it's getting better, Harold.
Yeah. Remember,
Harold.
you, the master of the half opinion. Oh, look, it's going down. Now it's back up.
We'll see in 6 months. See how you feel.
All right.
Yeah.
There you go, Harold.
Here is senior national correspondent Rich Edson.
Fraud in flagrante delicto, okay? We're talking at scale.
Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency are showing and defending their work across the first 100 days of the second Trump administration. At the Department of Education,
They found that money was being used to rent out Caesars Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, et cetera.
The Inter-American Foundation.
They get $50 million a year, congressional money, to give grants. These are things like, alpaca farming in Peru.
And more.
Improving the marketability of peas in Guatemala.
Really?
Fruit jam.
All part of DOGE claims the department has saved $160 billion. Musk says he's going to spend more time at Tesla, where sales and the company's stock price are down since Inauguration Day. His special government employee status is scheduled to end May 30th. Musk says DOGE needs to be a long-term enterprise.
There's a lot of work required to restart the waste and fraud.
Democrats accuse DOGE of inflating its savings, sloppy work, and cutting vital government services, medical research, and aid. They say spending is up this year and that Musk has failed to deliver at the Pentagon.
We heard from Elon Musk that he was going to cut the defense budget. And what happened? We're adding $150 billion to the defense budget.
There are more cuts coming, these directly from the White House. President Trump signed an executive order instructing the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to cease federal funding for NPR and PBS, saying neither entity presents a fair, accurate, or unbiased portrayal of current events to tax-paying citizens. PBS says it's exploring all its options. NPR says it, quote, will challenge this executive order using all...
Now, does this cut involve PBS Kids? Because sometimes when I see kids, they watch PBS Kids on PBS Kids channel. So I don't know if this defunding NPR and PBS affects PBS Kids. Does it affect PBS Kids? Because PBS Kids is actually a very educational platform for kids. But with that being said, thank you for tuning in to the live show. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. Also, let me know, how is Trump doing for this past 100 days? Well, it's more than 100 days now, probably like 105, 110 days. But let me know.
Expert failure and the Trump boom. That's the focus of tonight's angle.
At the Trump
All right,
boom.
just about 1 month ago, Trump promised us a new path to a golden age.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again.
Now, reciprocal tariffs were calculated to take into account all the trade tricks other countries use to rip us off and keep our products out. But the experts predicted utter doom.
It's likely we're headed for recession because of the president's ill-advised plans.
As Ken Griffin said, a dramatic economic shock in the form of the tariffs, a huge self-inflicted wound. This self-inflicted wound, it is really hurting itself and causing potentially enormous damage to the rest of the world.
Another gruesome day on Wall Street. The reason, once again, is President Trump's global trade war.
The sky was falling, and it was all because of the tariffs. Well, here's CNBC's headline, How Trump's Tariffs Rollout Turned into Stock Market Mayhem. Of course, then came all the fear-mongering around the R word.
I think it's likely that we're going to be in a recession. This is not a normal recession kind of situation.
Do you personally expect a recession?
I am going to defer to my economists at this point, but I think probably that's a likely outcome.
And we were told that Trump's aggressive moves to raise tariffs globally had burned bridges everywhere, that our national brand may never recover. Now, we were even told that Trump was going to steal our Christmas joy.
And now, the war on Christmas. Trump telling the country's children there will be fewer toys to look forward to this year.
So sad. And all because Trump, we were told, had overplayed his hand. Vox declared he had lost the trade war negotiations. The BBC was sure that because of Trump's ham-fisted approach, China wasn't coming to the table. And American media outlets and Democrats crowed that Trump was backing America into a corner. And yet today, 4 weeks later, these were the headlines. Not just that. After dismissing U.S. claims that they're fueling America's fentanyl overdoses, China suddenly offered to work with us to address the crisis. But that's not all. China's feeling so much heat from the tariffs, it began exempting a list of U.S.-made products from their reciprocal tariffs in an attempt to show good faith. So they're moving toward trade negotiations and all the other developments. All of it is positive. But then you ask, well, what about the overall health of the economy? Well, today, a huge jobs report beating expectations at 177,000 jobs created. So how will the doom and gloomers spin what's happened in the equity markets? Well, after weeks of naysaying this was CNBC's headline today. Dow jumps 500 points on solid jobs report. S&P 500 heads for the longest winning streak in 20 years. Well, of course, Trump couldn't resist a boast, writing on Truth Social that the economy is strong. Just like I said, and we're only in a transition stage, just getting started. Consumers have been waiting for years to see pricing come down, no inflation. The Fed should lower its rate. They also talked about gas prices, energy prices, food prices, egg prices coming down. So when we look back on all this hysteria, if by the end of the China talks, let's say the China talks, the CCP is forced to take on a 35 to 40% tariff, and let's say the rest of the world, and it looks like it's heading this way, maybe have to deal with a 10% tariff, that will be a huge win for America. Our industrial base will benefit, and of course, it's a huge win for Donald Trump. And with every passing day, and with trade deals in the works, it looks less and less likely that we will have a recession. And all the experts will have been proven wrong once again, like Janet Yellen, the woman who helped create Biden's inflation spiral. Why should we take her advice? Now, I want you to never forget that many of these people secretly prefer the Chinese system to ours anyway. So as long as they made their billions, they never cared that China was building a massive military or expanding its influence around the globe, or that Americans lost its industrial base. Even our shipbuilding capability was eroded. It was all collateral damage to the globalist politicians and to those who just want to satisfy the free market purists. Look, there will be hurdles ahead for sure, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But for now, it looks like Trump has played this masterfully. And that's the angle.
The Raging Cajun says Democrats need to go back to school.
Are we really going to do this? Are we really going to? We just got clobbered with young people. We got clobbered by males. We got clobbered by identity politics. And you're going to wade right back into this? Jesus Christ, has anybody ever learned anything? If we're going to chase every 25-year-old that says some thing out of the party and under the grounds of some allocated positions based on gender or ethnicity or whatever the they do, we're just doing the same thing. We never learn. We never learn.
Carville used to know how to win, but you can't win with Democrats who hate men. And they're starting to hate Nancy. At least she kept them disciplined. But Hakeem doesn't want anything to do with her because he doesn't like women bossing him around.
I was hearing from leadership staff that
the leadership on Capitol Hill right now wants to sort of move away from that Pelosi era, that they want to, that they don't want to embrace anyone or anything that's like Pelosi, which I just think is the dumbest SHIT ever.
That's crazy.
Members don't want any Pelosi. She's the baddest in the business. We actually landed punches. We actually won 40 seats. I'm just surprised that they're not calling everybody that has landed some punches on Trump, asking for the best advice.
If Nancy didn't have a busted hip and the coup goo sticking to her, she'd be the tip of the spear. But Hakeem's had it with her, and he'd rather do sit-ins and sing-alongs with his boy Booker. Pelosi says Hakeem has a big head.
So I'm not sure why they're not drawing on her more often. But it's probably an ego thing. I mean, I hate to say it. And part of the challenge, too, is, people want to establish themselves.
Right.
And how do you establish yourself if you have, and also, too, Pelosi, I can imagine, I've not seen her much since she stepped down. It's hard to be a boss and not be the boss.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to bring somebody like her into the room and she not take over the whole strategy.
Pelosi thinks Hakeem's off message, undisciplined, and 100 days in, she's giving him and the whole party a C+. Hakeem's about to flunk out of school. But Kamala's getting her groove back.
Have you learned the boots on the ground dance yet?
I am not. You know what? I know. Will you teach me?
I will.
Okay, I'm serious. We can do it together.
You serious?
I'm very serious.
Okay, we will get this after that.
All
right, sweat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now cross. All right, here we go.
Trump's got the YMCA and Harris has whatever you call that. The White House says keep dancing.
I think I speak for everyone at the White House. We encourage Kamala Harris to continue going out and do speaking engagements.
Obama's still playing puppet master. First Clooney. Now he's sending Van Jones out to find one black voter who says, I should have listened to Barry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would. Now, in the future, I am not a diehard Democrat or diehard Republican. If there were a Democratic candidate who was more aligned for me, then I would vote Democrat.
If you go back in time, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
Yes.
I think I might know the answer on this next one.
She said yes. It's immediately yes. No, I'm sorry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
1,000% absolutely yes.
No one really thinks Kamala can run again. Even the media is admitting she's a fraud. Remember when 60 Minutes hacked up her interview? Well, they're getting nominated for an Emmy for Outstanding Edited Interview Award. I'm serious. They had to carry her, and now they're giving each other awards for it. CNN's warning Democrats, stay away. She's trouble.
It's not just about regretting that vote. It's literally saying who would be doing the better job right now. And Trump continues to score a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris. It's not even close. It's an 8-point advantage, which in this politics, well, that's a wide ocean.
It's huge and maybe tells the Democrats that their messaging is not working.
Democrats don't have the cards. And 100 days in, they still don't know how to deal with Trump. They're shacking up with MS-13 and Steven Spielberg's so ashamed he stopped helping them produce videos. Watch.
I'd rather have 100 bad haircuts than to deal with 100 days of Donald Trump.
I'd rather have 100 vaccination shots in my arm.
I would rather have to take 100 scammer calls than go through the last 100 days.
I would rather sit on Interstate 84 in a traffic jam for 100 hours.
I'd rather cook 100 family meals, and believe me, my kids are going to find this very funny, than 100 days of Trump.
Democrats are getting laughed at in newsrooms. And late nights trying to make this guy Pritzker a thing, cooking up nicknames that Trump should have given him.
All right, you ready? Here's the list. JB Pizza. I like this. JB Back Ribs.
JB Back Ribs. Could be a song with that, too, you know?
J Biggie. JB the Hut. J Pritz his pants cur. Pritz Crackers, Governor Big Shorts, and JB the Refrigerator Pritzker.
Now that's a pretty good one.
No one's hungry for JB back ribs. Although Jazzy's a little more appetizing, not to be confused with Davy Crockett, says it feels like Trump's trying to kill her.
Same thing as it relates to the planes that are falling out of the sky.
Right.
We need some real transparency and we need some honesty, and we need to make sure that the American people are just as enraged as we all should be, because this administration is truly trying to kill us, it feels like.
Trump's not the one with blood on his hands. He didn't open the border and let killers in. The only person who's confident is crooked.
At the end of the day, we will defeat these people by winning elections. I mean, even if we win every court case, we still have to figure out how to get that enforced. Even if the press does lots of exposés, you're dealing with an administration that has no shame. They don't care that they are, being seen as corrupt or cruel or whatever. That is kind of the brand.
Democrats shouldn't take advice from Hillary. Bill maybe, not Hillary. House liberals they don't even want to wait until the next election. They're ready to impeach. But one House Democrat said, the guy got impeached twice. How did it work out for us? Democrats learn nothing. They're just getting dirtier. Look at what they're doing to Fetterman. Today, New York Magazine dropped a bomb, saying his staff thinks he's mentally unfit and can't do the job. They say he's erratic and impossible to work for. That's funny. We think Fetterman's been making more sense than ever. It's no secret Democrats didn't like when he went to Mar-a-Lago, and apparently he was considering voting for Hegseth. Oh my God, that was the last straw. Now they're leaking that Fetterman's catatonic, can barely string two sentences together, walks around his office in tight loops, and engages in risky behavior like FaceTimes texts and reads news articles while driving. Well, I think we're all guilty of that. They're also reporting that his staff took away his social media passwords and were engaged in secret conversations with his doctor behind his back. Fetterman denies all of this and says they're, quoting, disgruntled staffers. Kind of sounds like they're trying to 25th Amendment him. The only Democrat who speaks his mind. The only one with a shred of independence. What does it say about the Democratic Party that they can't tolerate a single senator not towing the party line?
And welcome to the special Friday night edition of Hannity. 100 days of political shock and awe, driving the left crazy. Now, amid a flurry of activity on every front, Donald Trump's second term has been filled with wins from day one, all while the president's political rivals, they are looking clueless, very angry, unhinged, and quite defeated. Now, just today, after weeks of doom and gloom about the economy from the legacy media mob, job growth shattered all expectations. Now, this is the second month in a row that the jobs report outpaced economic forecasts. Keep in mind, these are all private sector gains. The size of government has been shrinking under Trump, yet the labor participation rate is up, wages are up, costs are down. Gas and energy prices are at their lowest point in years, and now, according to Gallup, fewer Americans are worried about inflation. The doom, the gloom predictions surrounding Donald Trump's trade negotiations, they were all bogus. We'll show you that in polls in just a moment. But just this week, even China quietly eliminated tariffs on certain American products. Oh, wow. He challenged China, and hopefully they'll come to a deal as well. And new tonight, President Xi is open to direct talks with Donald Trump and the White House to lower tariffs across the board. Once again, the end of days hysteria on the left, totally unwarranted. And as an added bonus, by the way, tonight, there is another big win for Trump that will drive Democrats crazy. That makes me happy. Late last night, the president signed an executive order to strip all federal funding from NPR and PBS. Of course, these far-left outlets, they can continue to function just without your money. President Trump is also now threatening to remove the tax-exempt status from Harvard for failing to comply with basic civil rights amid rampant racial and religious discrimination on campus. This brings us to another bogus smear campaign from the left. According to Democrats, there is deep regret among Trump voters, but for some reason, the state-run legacy media mob just can't seem to find anyone in real life who actually regrets their vote. Look for yourself.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would. Now, in the future, I am not a diehard Democrat or diehard Republican. If there were a Democratic candidate who was more aligned for me, then I would vote Democrat.
If you go back in time, would you vote for Donald Trump? Yes or no?
Yes.
I think I might know the answer on this next one.
She said yes. It's immediately yes. No, I'm sorry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump? Yes or no?
1,000% absolutely yes.
Even fake news CNN this week said, yeah, the polling shows Donald Trump would win easily again. Anyway, Americans do not regret voting for Trump. The legacy media mob has been trying to push that narrative for a week. Why? Because he's doing what he promised to do, securing the border, deporting illegal immigrants, bringing down prices, holding government bureaucrats accountable, negotiating better, freer, fairer trade deals, and eliminating waste, fraud, abuse, corruption. This agenda is only controversial among the radical left. That would be the entire Democratic Party. And now, after getting blown out in 2024, Democrats are just doubling down on their extreme positions. Just listen to who Kamala Harris decided to praise during her late-night rant. Take a look.
Leaders across the spectrum, including congressional leaders like Cory Booker, Chris Van Hollen, Chris Murphy, Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost, AOC, and Bernie Sanders. All who, in different ways, have been speaking with moral clarity about this moment.
Okay, what a great list of people to choose from for 2028. I guess that's their short list. Make it right there, mark it down, and we'll see what happens over time. The only problem is they're all radical leftist extremists. Make no mistake, the people Kamala mentioned here, they are the real leaders of the Democratic Party. That part she got right. By the way, did she tell you the story about the elephant? I digress. In fact, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who is now the second most influential Democratic congresswoman behind AOC, reportedly now telling her colleagues she is, quote, made for the moment. And she now wants to lead the all-powerful House Oversight Committee. Keep in mind, this is the same Jasmine Crockett who thinks deporting illegal immigrants is kidnapping. I didn't make that one up. Take a look.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane. So yes, all I got to say is y'all need to get these fools out of here.
Now, this is the very same Congresswoman who still to this day thinks that Joe Biden is sharp as a tack.
Listen, I'm going to tell you this. You know, people tried to talk about the mental acuity of Joe Biden. And as someone who was able to interact with him, I never questioned his mental acuity.
Now, the delusion among the leading Democratic Party is almost hard to believe. Why can't they just be honest with the American people? I don't know. That would be refreshing.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. Y'all want to keep going? Y'all want to keep going? Y'all want to keep going? Or you good? Let's see. Overall, Trump, for me, is doing what he's supposed to do. This is why I voted for him to secure the border, bring prices down. Everything he said he was going to do, he's already doing it. He's done some of them and is already working on the things he said he was going to do. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see if we can do these right here. Shout out to the moderators. Shout out to everybody viewing right now. You guys are awesome. One thing I got to say about Bernie Sanders is he's been holding fighting oligarchy rally around the United States, and people are turning up, you know, liberals, Democrats, they're turning up for sure. And he's doing what he's, I guess, his supporters want, but he's too old to run for office. In my opinion, he's in his 80s. So, I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to do for his people, but it's just going to be hard for Bernie to really move a needle with what he's doing. Okay.
Recruiting months are ahead of us here through this summer. I think we're more than 90% right now. Actually, the good, problem is, we may have to look at how many of these folks that we can accept. So it's a great problem.
Under President Trump and Secretary of Defense Hegseth's leadership, we hit our 12-month retention goal 6 months into the year because that's how strong their leadership has been so far.
Army recruiting numbers are strong so far in 2025. This as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is ordering a comprehensive transformation of the Army. It's aimed at countering China and accelerating the Pentagon's new Golden Dome strategy. For more, let's bring in the author of The New Rules of War and former U.S. Army officer Sean McFate. Sean, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this idea that the Secretary is implementing when it comes to the Army, they're trying to get lighter, they're trying to get faster, they're trying to implement more drones, fewer helicopters. Good decision?
I think it's a necessary decision. This is a come too late decision. The Department of Defense has been growing and growing, so now our DoD budget is larger than the next 9 biggest countries' militaries in the world combined: China, Russia. And we have a lot of legacy systems, really, that were designed for the Soviet Union, still in our arsenal. And I think the Army is finally trying to peel them away. And they're taking the lessons learned from Ukraine, that cheap, adaptive technology like off-the-shelf drones can defeat super expensive, exquisite technology, whether they be Apache helicopters or tanks.
I mean, it's incredible. You look at the emergence of drone warfare, the U.S. really putting it on the field in the global war on terror, and now the Ukrainians doing some really fascinating innovation with it, right?
That's right. I mean, Ukrainians have shown us that with some cleverness and courage and cunning, you can take something from, off Amazon, use an Xbox controller or an iPad and make your own sort of swarm that can suicide destroy a very, very expensive helicopter, airplane, tank. And also, I would like to say that, game designers had a role in this, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be surprised.
Like the Call of Duty type
yeah,
thing?
exactly, exactly. And so I think the Army is recognizing this and trying to not necessarily get game designers, although that would be pretty cool. But the point is that they're trying to update to a 21st century Army.
Now, the Secretary is pushing this. There's the procurement system, right, in the Defense Department. Turning that battleship is not quick.
It's multiple battleships fused together. I mean, the federal acquisition regulation in general is like multiple phone books for those who remember phone books thick. I don't know what it would take besides a Harry Potter wand to fix that. But I think that Secretary of Defense Hegseth and others in the Trump administration are trying to address this problem. We spend way too much time and we get products that at the end that we don't need or we don't want, such as the M10 Booker tank. So I used to be a paratrooper, and this thing was designed years ago to be thrown out of an airplane and parachute down to the ground to use in modern battle. And what they finally got, the Army finally got, was something that was too heavy to do that. And it was too light to compete with the M1 tank. And oh, by the way, are tanks even relevant in modern warfare?
Mm-hmm. The administration is talking about Iron Dome, that's the system that protects Israel, and then implementing the Golden Dome here to protect the United States. Is that, the U.S. is a heck of a lot bigger than Israel.
Yeah.
Is it feasible?
I don't think so, but here's what I'll tell you. So some of your viewers will remember Reagan's Star Wars program, the SDI program. It's going to be like that, modeled on Israel's Golden Dome, as you said, but Israel's the size of New Jersey. And it had the U.S. Navy at its back during the Iran launches, who were shooting down a lot of those missiles on the in the Mediterranean. Try that with North America. And can we cover all of North America? Will it be gapless? Will there be big seams? And I just think this is going to be a multi-decade, multi-trillion-dollar project. And based on the defense industry's past performance, looking at things like the F-35 fighter jet, which cost $2 trillion, I don't know.
Army recruitment is up.
Yes.
The Army is touting that. What do you think has worked and what do you think will work? What made you raise your hand and say, I want to do this, I want to serve my country?
Well, I raised my hand during the Cold War. So it was very plausible or palpable threat of the Soviet Union, even at the very end. I think the difference is this, is that younger folks don't want to join a losing army. And the post 9/11 wars, for whatever reason we can debate, were not winning moments for the United States of America. And I think an additional to that, though, is that why we're seeing a surge now is because I think that I would give credit to President Trump and Secretary of Defense Hegseth for removing woke from the Army. I think a lot of stalwart places we get troops from, like the Heartland and the South, they were turned off by the DEI and the woke, and those sort of streams of recruits dried up, and I think now that's been reversed. So I give credit to the leadership.
All right, Shami Fate, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and
Alrighty, you guys are the best for sure, 1,000%. This will be the closing right here. Trump's interview with NBC.
That the possibility of a recession is increasing. And I want to know what you think about that. Are you comfortable with some people on Wall Street have expressed concerns that the possibility of a recession is increasing. And I want to know what you think about that. Are you comfortable with the country potentially dipping into a recession for a period of time if you are able to achieve your long-term goals?
Well, you say some people on Wall Street say, well, I tell you something else. Some people on Wall Street say that we're going to have the greatest economy in history. Why don't you talk about them? Because some people on Wall Street say this is the greatest thing.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at, though. It's the same question.
Yeah, there are many people on Wall Street say this is going to be the greatest windfall ever happened.
And that's my question.
Remember
the
this.
long term.
Yeah.
Is it okay in the short term to have a recession?
This. Look, everything's okay. What we are, I said, this is a transition period. I think we're going to do fantastically.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about.
These folks always forget. These folks always forget that we had 4 years of Joe Biden. We actually drove to the gas tank. Okay, we drove to the gas station, rather. We drove to the gas station and we tried to fill our tanks up, and we saw how much we paid. Okay, we see the mortgage rate. We saw the way the border was. We saw that Ukraine and Russia escalated during Biden. We saw how the Afghanistan withdrawal was. So it's like these people think we forgot everything we had to go through under Biden, and it's like, well, but Trump is the bad person. No, he's not. Okay. He's trying to end a war that was escalated during Biden's era. And yet you're going to say, well, Trump's regime, he's doing this and that. He's not supporting Ukraine. Who wins in a war? Nobody. People die, kids. Okay, so like, I don't care who is at fault. Of course, Russia started it, but do you want to point fingers or you want to end the war? And concerning tariffs, people are like, well, Trump is collapsing the economy. Everybody agrees that the United States has to renegotiate their trade deals. Everybody agrees. But it's like, because Trump is doing it, you don't like it. If Joe Biden did this, he would have collected a Nobel Peace Prize. But of course, Trump is a rich kid. His father left him millions of dollars. He's spoiled. He doesn't respect people of color. His racist is Hitler. So of course, nothing he does, nothing he says matters. And most Americans are now awoken and they're voting in droves for common sense. And that's why Trump won in a landslide. Okay? Every swing state he won it. How is that even possible? He won by far because Americans are tired of promises made, promises not kept. And shout out to Joe Biden for allowing that happen. Because without Joe Biden in 2021, the people wouldn't have woken up to this level and realized that, oh, shoot, Trump is actually the answer. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and believe in Almighty God, okay? Life is hard. However, never ever throw in the towel. Stay strong, okay? You never know. You would see the light at the end of the tunnel. And even if you don't, have some fun, baby. Have some fun, okay? Life is a gift. Never take it for granted, okay? Never ever take life for granted. Thank you so much to the veterans. Thank you so much to the military personnel. You guys protect the homeland. God bless you. And it is your boy, Genesis. I got to sign out. Love you guys. God is great. Oh, wait. I got to say thank you to Mr. Busky, Dana, Zyros Garden, C. Shelley. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. But those are the moderators and members. So God bless you guys. See y'all soon.